Yep. Okay, now we're
Nice.
recording. Okay, we're good. Now we're live.
We got
We're here.
a lot of sunshine today, so the solar panels are doing their job.
Everything's charged.
Everything's charged.
We got better internet again.
You got better internet. We upgraded, so
Mhm.
we're all good. I hope everybody's doing good. I don't know about you, but we have really been feeling the new moon, solar eclipse. We've been
All the things.
in it, like really in it.
Mhm.
And yeah, we're both kind of feeling a lower energy today, but we're gonna chill and talk about my favorite things. So
Human design.
yeah, but specifically today we're gonna start getting into the profile lines and how the profile lines relate to the chakras, which is like my favorite part about human design. I think it's the part that is vastly underrepresented and underserved.
You think so?
It's really the story of our evolution as a humanity, and also not just the how we do what we do, which to me, like energy type and authority type is like how we do what we do and how we move through the world. And to me, profile is like why we do what we do and who we are here to be and the archetype we're here to embody in this lifetime and how we share and gain wisdom. So it's very near and dear to my heart. When I learned about my 4/6 profile, that rang more true to me than learning I was a projector even.
Okay.
Yeah, so
All right.
I love it.
Good stuff.
But I wanted to actually start by sharing some videos with you guys.
Videos, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you want to do it or you want me to?
I'm gonna let you do that.
Sure. You got it.
So also one of my favorite things to do with human design is to look at kids, because kids are such pure, innocent embodiments of who they are. They a lot of times have, well, not a lot of times, they do have a lot less conditioning because they haven't gone through their whole lives yet of basically absorbing programming from everybody around them. And so last time we talked about energy types, and we talked about manifestors, manifesting generators, and projectors. So this first video I'm going to show you guys is my friend's generator baby eating a cupcake on his first birthday. All right.
So I
Are we
guess.
screen sharing? Are we
What?
good? Yeah, we're screen sharing.
Yeah, we're screen sharing.
Okay. So you see right away, he's just getting it. He's just getting it. He is so absorbed in that cupcake. And what you can't see is that there's literally like 20 people around him. And he's looking around a little bit, but for the most part, like, he is really into that cupcake. And his mom, who's a projector, trying to give him water, and he's like, "No, Mom, I'm good. I didn't invite you in here. Don't need you."
Hey.
And so I think what a lot of times generators feel when they first learn about human design, because generators are one of the more common types, a lot of generators I work with feel, they feel like they're not unique, or they feel like, oh, I'm just a generator. But as you can see there, little Noah, just by him being so in love with life and just in love with that cupcake and just absorbed in his own experience, he's uplifting and rising the energy of the entire environment. There was like 20 people all around him, and they were all so happy and so just uplifted by him being him. Okay, and then
Good
this
stuff.
is my niece, also on her first birthday, eating a cupcake. And my niece is a projector. And so I want you to kind of spot the difference between Noah, who's a generator, and Reagan, my niece, who's a projector. Okay, so she's not too sure about this cake thing. She's observing it. She's feeling all angles of it. Oh, she's looking around. Oh, there's the cake. I'm gonna touch it some more. Oh, but I'm gonna look. What are those people doing over there? I'm not really sure. Oh, that's her dad right there. She's like, "Dad, what are you doing?" Looking around, not too sure. She's also, for those of you who have been studying human design for a long time, she's what's called touch cognition, which means that she literally takes in the most sensory information through her hands. So everything that she eats, she's got to like feel it with her hands. She's got to mush it in her hands. Got to see how it works. Okay,
Nice.
so I think you've seen enough of that. But
All right, I'm
what
just
I
trying
love-
to roll with it.
what I love about that is that, so as you can see, Noah, very like wrapped up in his own experience. Reagan, on the other hand, she's like not even really interested in eating the cake because she's so interested in observing what's going on around her, looking at her dad, looking at me, looking at my mom, who you can't see in the camera, who's walking around. And it's really fascinating to observe, and I especially, it makes me think about me as a baby, because I was fortunate to be raised with a cousin who was only 1 day older than me, and he's a generator and I'm a projector. Like looking at videos, it's so fascinating because he's got so much energy. He's always building, he's always playing, he's always creating things. And like as a baby, I was always just kind of chilling. Like I met all my motor milestones on time, but for the most part, I was just interested in like sitting and watching people, and I would literally like watch him as he crawled circles around me, and I would giggle. And yeah, it's really fascinating. A manifestor child, I think they probably wouldn't even be eating the cupcake while everybody else is there. They'd want to be doing it on their own time. Like they would probably be so wrapped up in what they're doing that like their mom would try to get them to eat the cupcake, and they'd be like, I want to eat the cupcake right now. Manifesting generator baby would probably be eating the cupcake and running around and playing with something all at the same time. A reflector baby would probably need somebody right in front of them eating the cupcake so that they would know what to do and like know how to experience it.
Nice. Good
So
deal.
really fascinating stuff. Okay, so we're gonna jump back in. The only energy type we didn't talk about last week is reflectors. Last but not least, are beautiful reflectors. And we are fortunate to have, I don't know if Ash is tuned in yet.
Right there, you see her?
Oh, there she is.
Looky.
Yeah, so we actually, we have two reflectors. We have Ash and Candy here, which is amazing because reflectors
Nice.
are only 1% of the population. And so there's a lot about reflectors that's like very largely misunderstood. And so, yeah, if at any time Ash or Candy you want to chime in, you go for it. No pressure though. Babe, can you pull up the energy type?
Energy type. Yeah, it's right here. You want to do it? Okay. A little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Yeah, so we're going to go all the way down to the reflector slide.
Okay. Screen sharing, there it is. And all the way down to the reflector. Whoa, 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 wrong button. There it is. Okay. Gotcha.
Okay, so reflectors are really these magical oracle beings where you're looking at all the centers previously, and the reason why we went through
Oops.
and learned about all the centers in the first place was so that you guys could kind of understand and relate why each energy type is the way they are based on their centers. So for reflectors, they're beings where every single one of their centers is white or undefined or open. And what that means is that reflectors, deeper than any other being, really take in and absorb and amplify their environment. But what makes them even more different is that in addition to being able to do that, they have what's called a sampling aura. And Ra, the founder of human design, often would describe this as like a Teflon aura. And the way I think about it, and I've heard Ash describe it this way too, which I love, is that by having a sampling or Teflon aura, you're able to take in and almost experience the identities of many different people or of whatever environment that you're in. But because you have a sampling aura or a Teflon aura, it doesn't stick to you. So a lot of times reflectors, they kind of go through this, they go through their lives, especially in the earlier parts of their lives, and especially if they don't know they're reflectors, they often almost like go through this feeling of like, who am I and what am I here to do? And it's really fascinating because every reflector who I know, they don't really feel super connected to this physical earthly experience. They almost feel like they're visitors, or like they are like some sort. I've even heard like someone say like, I feel like I'm an alien race who's here to just like to basically observe what humans are doing, and I feel what they're doing, and I feel what they're doing very deeply, and I even experience what they're doing, but I don't identify that as me, and I don't feel really super connected to this experience. And so reflectors are really like the ultimate shapeshifters, because they can feel, and not only feel, because projectors are here to feel other people. Reflectors are here to literally become other people. So if you meet a reflector, like Ash being a reflector, like when I first met her, I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, like her and I are so similar, like she's just like me. And then like come to find out she's a reflector, and like the reason why I think she's just like me is because she's reflecting me back to me. And so the beautiful thing about reflectors is that they are the ultimate meters of how we're doing as a society, and our health meters, because they're in a sense like the most sensitive. And I don't use sensitive in a negative way. I use sensitive as like they're the most attuned to what is healthy for us. Because if you're sensitive, then if your body is sensitive, then it really just means that your body is really good at telling you if something's wrong, right? So reflectors are that way, and that in an ideal world, because reflectors are like 1% of the population, an ideal world, we would set up our society such that, you know, with every little community of 100 people that we have, we would have a reflector at the center of it that we would look to as like our oracle and our guide, who would be the person who would tell us like where we're headed or where we're going right now is like in a positive direction. Or maybe they would be the evaluators that would tell us these are the things that we're doing really well, but these are the things that are not in alignment with our highest potential. And what's really fascinating, and I hope Ash doesn't mind I keep talking about her, but like what Ash can do is so amazing, because she can literally like be in front of a person, and she'll be able to reflect back to them what their highest potential is. And so it's kind of a trip, because she has this like superpower ability to be like, this is your highest potential, but if you keep going down the pathway that you're going, like this is also your other potential. So it's like reflectors, they are super tapped into that other person, and that's what makes them such great evaluators. And so yeah, so like I said before, sensitivity is truly the superpower of the reflector. And I think it's really fascinating too that Ra used to talk about reflectors in that like he used this analogy of the Matrix movie. And for those of you who are not as familiar with the Matrix, basically it's like this premise that we're all living in a video game in a sense, and there's this man named Morpheus who like tries to basically wake people up inside of the game and bring them out of the game. And then there's also these bots basically that are called Agent Smith, and they try to keep people in the Matrix, and they're like the police force that trying to make sure that people don't get woken up. So what's fascinating is that reflectors, when they're in alignment, they're kind of like Morpheus, because they're really good at when they're pure vessels, and they're very connected with the fact that they're reflectors and the fact that they're not connected to anything. This makes them really connected to the divinity of everything and the oneness of everything and the cosmos and the universe and the planets. They're really connected to those things. And so just like Morpheus, they're really good at kind of like spotting who's ready to be woken up in a sense, and who's ready to be made aware of consciousness and divinity and oneness. But on the other hand, reflectors who are not aware of the fact that they have this superpower to reflect everybody else, they can become like Agent Smith, because they like not self reflectors will basically become so almost like addicted to becoming the other people, that they'll become so basically absorbed in the matrix, so to speak, or so like obsessed with identifying with the environment that they're in, that they will become like Agent Smith. Because if somebody is in that environment and is not like in alignment with that environment, they'll be like, you don't belong here, or like, you're not, you're not one of us, or you're not meant to be. Because on the one hand, they're really sucked into that matrix, and identifying with it, but then on the other hand, they still have that ability to reflect. So they're maybe not so conscious, they're not doing this consciously, but they're still being able to reflect other people when those people are not in alignment with the norm, so to speak. Really fascinating. Reflectors are also the only lunar beings. So all the other types are solar beings, because we all have some sort of defined energy that we wake up with, and that's us every day. Like for me, I wake up every day and I'm very open. I have 7 open centers, but I wake up and I have root energy, lots of it, and I wake up and I have spleen energy. So I have really consistent access to my instincts and my intuitions. But reflectors are lunar beings, which means that reflectors still have their own personalities, very much so. They have their own sense of self, because they do have lots of gates that are activated. But rather than experiencing themselves over the course of a day, they experience themselves over the course of a month. So that's why strategies for a reflector is to, what is often talked about in human design is for reflectors, anytime they're making decisions or anything like that, that they need to wait a full lunar cycle. I think that that's kind of almost, I wouldn't say that's outdated in a way, but I think that leaves a lot of reflectors being like, what the heck do I do with myself? Like, how do I even choose what I'm going to eat for breakfast? And how do I even navigate the world?
Mm-hmm.
So the way I like to reframe this is like, yes, it's helpful when you're making big decisions. Do wait as long as you can, and experiment with journaling over the course of a month. And if you're a woman who menstruates or who is just really connected to being cyclical, then mapping your cycle is also really, really helpful. But really what it comes down to is when you make a decision, like, you need to feel like you can reflect your environment from every angle. I once heard someone describe it's as though, like, for reflectors, when they make a decision, it's like, let's say there's a box sitting in the middle of the room and you're trying to decide, like, do I open this box or not? For a reflector, it's like you have to walk all the way around the box and see the box from every angle before you decide if it's correct for you to open the box or not. And so for reflectors too, because they're not connected to any identity, in a sense, they're literally designed to be the embodiment of non-attachment. Their aligned theme, or the sign that they're in alignment with themselves, is that they feel surprised and delighted, and they get to walk around in the world and sample and be surprised by what they feel, because when they're not attached to any particular outcome, then that allows them to be surprised. I know I keep repeating myself, but I don't know any other way else to say it. But on the other hand, if reflectors are finding themselves really attached to certain expectations or identities, then this can lead to them feeling a lot of disappointment, or a lot of feeling like they've been let down by their environment because it didn't pan out the way that they were expecting. Or another way this can play out is if the reflector is in an environment that is not healthy for them, then that can lead them to not only feel disappointed, but to also to become and feel unhealthy. And so the other kind of, I like to say, almost like the second strategy of the reflector, besides waiting a whole lunar cycle, is you guys really need to give yourselves the ultimate permission to leave an environment or pivot or walk away or give yourself space if you're just not feeling good, or if you notice that certain illnesses or certain ailments or certain things are coming up for you, then that's really good permission to just take a step back. And and it's really fascinating. Another example of a reflector who I use a lot is Jordan Younger of The Balanced Blonde, because she literally has sampled like all these different workout styles, all these different diet styles. For those of you who aren't familiar with her, she started her whole career, I want to say like 7 years ago, as a vegan food blogger, and then she like actually wrote a book about why being vegan like led her to have orthorexia, and then she came back again and was like, actually raw vegan is what healed my body. And then now she's going through this whole journey of healing Lyme disease. But it's really fascinating because here she is, this reflector who has this really amazing community around her, who like everybody looks to her to be like, what is healthy for us to do? And her body is like very sensitive to things, but by her being sensitive to things and like having to figure that out in her life, it allows her to kind of be like a role model to other people of what they can do. My grandma's a reflector too, so that's another reason why reflectors are near and dear to my heart. And last time we were visiting them, I said to Nick I told Nick, do you remember this? I said to describe my grandma in 5 words. And I don't even remember what you said to describe her, but it was so trippy because it was like all things that were true, but also definitely not the top 5 things that I would pick. And I was like, okay, well now you know that you just described yourself, because when you look at a reflector, you're literally looking at yourself. And like literally the 5 things that he described were like totally him. It was like, I think he said like free-spirited and compassionate and playful or something like that. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty much true.
Nice.
Okay, let me see if there's any. No chat. Okay. Whoop. Sorry, technical difficulties always.
You got it, Chief?
Uh,
What are you trying to do here?
Struggling. Okay.
Press it. There you go.
Okay, so I put these up here to kind of show you guys what different charts would look like. So
I got you. Go ahead.
The first chart on the left is a reflector chart. So that's where all the centers are white and open. So you can see they're taking in their environment super deeply. The next one in the middle, I believe, is a manifester. And the way I know that is because the sacral center, or the square that's, the square on the bottom is the root, and then the next one up is the sacral. And because that one's white, I know that they're not a generator or a manifesting generator. And then the next thing I look for is, okay, they have a defined throat here, and then their defined throat is connected to a motor boom that makes them a manifester. And then this chart over here, oh, I see they have a defined sacral, so then that means that this person is definitely either a generator or a manifesting generator. And then I look, okay, they do have a defined throat, but their defined throat is not connected to any of the motor centers down here. So this person down here is a pure generator.
Which ones are the motor centers?
The motor centers are, so the root is one, the sacral is one, the emotional solar plexus is one, and then the heart is one. And then I also love this picture. So I think this really does a good job at depicting how the different aura types kind of interact with each other. So on the left, you have manifestors who are here to initiate things, and their auras are, it says that they're dense. They're really like, I want to say they're big, they're impactful. They're the biggest out of any of the aura types. And they're closed, meaning that they're not taking in as much as they're putting out. So they're not closed in that they're closed off and not giving off anything. They're closed and then they're self-contained, and they're, again, remember, they're repelling, but they're not repelling in a negative sense. They're repelling obstacles that are in their way. Ra used to talk about manifestor children are like the children who will like just open up the front door one day and wander down the street, but they have this natural repelling aura around them. So like nothing bad usually ever happens to manifestor children, because it's like they're repelling, it's almost like they're repelling not necessarily negative circumstances, but they're repelling things that could harm them, and they're repelling things that are going to take them away from fulfilling their purpose or fulfilling their mission. And then you have the projector and the generator, and a lot of times Ra would kind of clump together generator and MG auras, because both generators and manifesting generators have very like open and magnetic auras. They're always kind of attracting in other people. And so you see that projector and generator aura types work very synergistically with each other, where the projectors are very focused and penetrating, and our auras are like lasers. We go into other people and we see into them very, very deeply. And so we kind of like will plug into that generator aura and see into them. And while we're plugged into them, we're also basically getting fed with their life force energy. So by us seeing deeply into the generator, then that allows us to see them, give them wisdom about how they could use their energy more efficiently, and then they generate more energy with that knowingness, and then by generating more energy, it gives more energy back to the projector. And so also this goes back to what the example Nick and I gave, where like if we're sitting at a cafe or a coffee shop or something, he will feel people who are looking at us or who are tuning into his energy, because his aura is very open and inviting.
As a man gen.
Yeah, as a man gen. And a generator would be the same way. So your aura is very available to other people. Generator and manifesting generator. Another example that Ra gave is that for you guys, let's say that you were to be like a speaker or a teacher. If you walk into a room, you can naturally hold the energy of that entire room, and you can make everybody in that room feel welcome and invited and taken care of in a sense. He said for projectors though, it's kind of fascinating, because it's like the second a projector turns their attention to somebody, then they've already almost, and Ra also, you have to know, was like very, very cynical in the way he taught things sometimes. So he would say that a projector, the second they turn their attention towards somebody, they've already made an enemy. Because for us, we can really truly only focus our attention on like one person or one thing at a time. And so when we're really locked into that other person or thing, it's like it's really hard to pay attention to the world outside. So that's like, for me, when I'm in my cave and I'm really focused on something, when Nick comes and like draws my attention towards something else, it can be like really jarring to my nervous system sometimes. Or if I'm really focusing on a conversation with somebody, I'm really super unaware of what's going on. So it's super fascinating. And then reflectors are kind of out here, and like I said, they're sampling all the other types and all of their environments, and they're kind of going through life, and they're able to feel lots of different things, but they're not attached to any certain identity. So a lot of times reflectors will, like, I know Ash tells her story a lot about when she was a teenager. She went and sampled all the different religions in her city, and didn't really feel like one really stuck, because she was just sampling it. So a lot of times reflectors will do that. Well, they'll sample lots of different careers or lots of different friend groups or different hobbies, and not really feeling like they're identified with any of them. And so another, let me just see this. See, I can't. I can't focus on multiple things at once. I'm like, ooh, the comments. I need to look at this. My manifestor friends never feel unsafe being catcalled. I find it very interesting. This is random. Yes, this is so true. One of my best friends is a manifestor, and like, I feel violated. I've always felt very violated when I'm like catcalled, or like if we were walking down the street at night and like we'd had a couple drinks or whatever, I'd feel super vulnerable if I knew that like people were watching us or whatever. But when my friend Ashlyn was with me, she was like, oh, like we're totally good. Like she just had this basically unwavering faith that like we were always safe and nothing was ever gonna happen to us. And like for the most part it was true. Like she literally met her husband. This is probably sharing way too much information, but she literally met her husband online and like flew to New Zealand, having like only talked to him. Well, they did talk for a month, but like it was still kind of a weird situation where for most people like meeting someone online and then flying across the world to meet them is like really scary. But like she literally met her husband online and flew to New Zealand and had this like very fairy tale experience, and like everything just kind of fell into place for her. And her parents in the meantime were like super freaked out something was gonna happen to her, but she's like, no, Mom, Dad, I got this. Yeah, so super fascinating.
And to answer your question about enveloping, I literally think of it like this. I've never heard anybody describe it like this, but think of an envelope, if you know what an envelope is. And enveloping, the word literally means like it's all the way around. Like imagine, the piece of paper gets enveloped in the envelope. Kind of like that. That's what I think it is. Or if you get a big hug and they get in there.
Yes,
that's kind of what it's like.
That's exactly what it, as a projector who can like kind of feel other people's auras, that's exactly what it feels like to me. Like I feel like generators are like the most warm and fuzzy hugs. Manifesting generators are also warm and fuzzy, but they're also kind of like, they have this energy of like, I got you. Like I'm going to take care of everything because I have so much energy, and I'm going to bounce around and be really sparkly and shiny while I do it because I have my unique ways that I do things. And
nice.
And that goes back to like, that's why I think of generators as more of a magnet and manifesting generators as more of a web, because both of them are sticky, both of them draw in people, but the web will like catch people in their web as they're like going and moving and dancing and doing all these different things, whereas like a generator just kind of like sits and does their thing. Not necessarily sits, but they kind of like stay in their little corner doing their own little thing, and people are going to be naturally so drawn to them. They're so uber magnetic. It's like,
is one more magnetic than the other? Or?
Not.
I think it depends on the person, right?
It depends on the person. Like my stepdad is a generator, and when he's like really aligned, it's really funny because he's like this. He's a retired Navy SEAL, and on the outside he's like this really like tough, really tough guy. Like he tries to put off this. He tries to be a manifester. Like he tries to put off this like tough guy, like nothing's ever gonna get to me thing, but he totally has this softy side, and everybody I know is like really drawn to him, and it's really fascinating because he tries to be repelling and he tries to be intimidating, and he's so not intimidating.
Yeah. What do we have here?
Okay, so this is a picture of this is just another picture of the projector aura with the manifesting generator aura that I thought was fascinating. So the one on the left is a projector plugging in, and then this kind of depicts the open and enveloping aura.
Yeah. So MGs are kind of like the sun, in a way.
Yeah, you can think of it like that too.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna go back to these pictures here.
Which one?
Or maybe.
Oh, all the way back.
Sorry. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about authority type briefly.
Nice.
When you go into the Google Drive, there is a whole hour-long recording that I did a while back that will go into the basics of each authority type.
Well, hold on. What's an authority type?
Well, I'm getting there.
Oh, shit. Okay. All right. I'll be over here. See, I just plugged in. You're like, I'm busy.
This literally is just because I'm on day 6 of my cycle right now, and like usually at this point in my cycle, I'm like done bleeding and my energy's back and I'm good. And right now, that is just so not the reality. So I'm having to like release that. So, like I'm a little bit short with Nick right now, and that's why.
Alrighty.
Thank you.
Anyways, authority types. All right.
Okay, so I totally forgot what I was saying. So, yeah, so a while back I did a whole hour-long recording on authority types, and that's in the Google Drive. And if any of you guys are having difficulty with the Google Drive, go ahead and just request access or email me. I don't know why some people aren't able to get into it. It is literally set so that what should happen is that anybody who has access to the link should be able to open it. But for those who have had difficulty, they've just sent me a request to access, and I've been able to let them in. They've had no problems. So there's an audio recording on all of the authority types in there. And then I also have a little pocket guide that goes through each of the types. And really what I recommend with authority type, because basically what authority type is, oh yeah, thank you, Ash. Thank you. The way I think of authority is it's the way that you tap into your intuition, and it's the way, the literal mechanics of how you're designed to make decisions such that you don't have to be making logical decisions from your mind all the time, and it frees your mind to focus on other more creative ventures. And it also allows you to be more in alignment with your higher self. And the other thing I'd like to say to that is really my best advice to all of you, especially if you're new to human design, is learn the basics of all the authority types so that you know how to support those around you. Because when we know and understand that we're all different and that we all need different things to make decisions, then it allows us to function in a much more synergistic way. But the other thing I would say is like, look to people in the human design community who have your specific authority type and learn from them. Because I'm an expert on splenic authority because I live it every single day and I know what it feels like in my body. But I'm not necessarily going to be an expert in ego manifested authority the way Matt is. And I've learned a lot by talking to Matt about his ego manifested authority because I don't have a way of experiencing that for myself. And it was so beautiful. I heard on a podcast the other day from another ego manifester. She was saying that she feels like the future of human design is that we will all basically be learning from each other and nobody's going to be really an expert at anything. But basically, like, those who have splenic authority will look to others who have splenic authority who've been experimenting with their splenic authority for a while, who can be role models for them. And 3-5 manifesting generators with sacral authority like Nick will look for other manifesting generators who are similar and they can learn from each other. And so it's really good, to know the basics of all the types, because having understanding is really close to love. That's why I think reason and logic is like the last theme of consciousness before you reach love, is because like having understanding for all the different types allows us to have compassion for them and therefore to love them the way that they need to be loved. But at the same time, I'm not gonna know what it's like to be a reflector and wait a lunar cycle. So let's keep that in mind. But the way authority type works is that you can think of it like your 9 centers are all kind of like they're all kind of like cities, but there's going to be one energy type that's the capital, and there's the one energy type that's governs the other ones and like calls the shots and is the ultimate MVP of the chart. And so all of them have a say, but at the end of the day, whatever your authority type is the one that gets to make the decision. and it works in a hierarchical system. So, for example, if you have emotional authority, or if you have a defined solar plexus, that's why I kept this up here so we could look at a chart. If you have a defined solar plexus, so this center over here, then you're automatically going to have emotional authority, because our emotions, in a sense, like trump all the other ones. And this is because we're evolving into, or what Ra, the founder of human design, kind of theorized or prophesized, is that we are moving into like a whole other evolution of humanity, wherein around the year 2027, we're gonna be evolved to be like Homo spiritus, he called it, which means that our solar plexus center, which houses our emotions, is gonna mutate, and our emotions are gonna become our spiritual awareness. And one thing that he said would happen is that children born on or around that time or after that time would, like, they're gonna start coming into this human experience with spiritual awareness. So these are gonna be kids who are highly already aware of the fact that they're spiritual beings, and might even possibly remember like past lives, or remember or just know from the time that they're born that they're a soul having a temporary experience, which is fascinating. So that's why the emotions are basically the loudest out of all the other ones. So if you have emotional authority, it's going to be a little different depending on what your energy type is. So no matter what your energy type is, though, the main thing for emotional authority is that you need to make decisions, or you make aligned decisions best when your emotions are in a cool, calm, and collected place. So you will naturally have this emotional wave that's always cycling in the background. And if your emotions are too high or they're too low, they're going to impact your ability to make an aligned decision. So for you, like, and again, this is 50% of the world. For you guys, it's your best friend phrases are, let me sleep on this. This sounds like an amazing offer, but I need some time to mull it over or to feel it out. And the fascinating thing for people with emotional authority is that they're often afraid to give themselves that time in that space, or to own that and communicate that to other people, that that's what they need. But actually, the very act of telling people that you need time is often very alluring to them. It actually is, it almost has this like seductive quality to it, whereas like if you were to be offered a job and you were to tell that person that you need 3 days to think about it, that would almost make them want you more. But a lot of times we don't think about it that way, because we're in a society where we're told like, I need things now, I need them now. And so for a generator or a manifesting generator, if you have emotional authority, you're still going to be connected to your gut response. So you're still going to need to check in with your gut of that, that's a yes for me, or the that's a no for me. But you do that over the course of your emotional wave. And then again, you wait until your emotions aren't clouding your gut response. And then you check in again and you see at that point if it's a yes or a no. Now, for projectors or manifestors, on the other hand, who have emotional authority, it's a little different, because you don't have that binary, like on or off, yes I want it, no I don't thing going on. So for you guys, it's more about when your emotions are in like a cool, calm, and collected place, and you think about this opportunity or this person or this place or this thing that you're contemplating engaging with, you kind of like ask yourself, how does it make me feel when I think about these things? What is it feeling in my body? Do I feel happy? Do I feel sad? Like, what's coming up for me? And so it's a much more subjective experience, but it's very, very in tune with feeling. And then the next authority type would be, so if you have an undefined solar plexus, so undefined emotions, then if you have undefined solar plexus, but then you have a defined sacral, that's the next one that kind of takes hierarchy over the others. So sacral authority would be if you're a generator or a manifesting generator and you don't have defined emotions. So it's the same thing where you listen to your gut, but for you guys, it's important for you to understand that whatever spontaneous truth you have in the moment is your truth. So if an opportunity is presented to you and in the moment it really makes you excited, but like let's say you don't know how you're going to finance that thing, or you're not sure how saying yes to that is going to make your partner feel or whatever, you need to understand that that's still your ultimate truth. And the more that you wait to almost like take action on that decision, the more likely you're going to, or the more susceptible you're going to be to taking in the emotional energy from other people. So I often tell people with sacral authority to try to make a decision, or once you make a decision, try to take an action step towards that as soon as possible. Otherwise, you're going to get wrapped up in what everybody else is wanting and feeling. And then the next one over would be splenic. So if you have an undefined solar plexus and an undefined sacral, but you have a defined spleen, then you're going to have splenic authority, because it's kind of the next one down the list. So splenic authority I'm very intimate with because I have splenic authority, and the way that I describe this is like sacral authority and emotional authority are both very movement oriented, meaning that you can kind of feel the movement of energy in your body. With emotional authority, you feel that energy move over time. The sacral authority, you feel it in the moment, but you feel it rise in your body. Splenic authority isn't really like that. It's kind of, for me, at least the way I experience it, it's very subtle, and it's kind of like either, the way I think of it is like either all of the cells in my body feel like they're vibrating in resonance with each other, which tells me that I'm safe and that that is in alignment with me, or I feel this like dissonance and like dis-ease in my body, and this like general feeling of uneasiness. And a lot of people in the human design community say that splenic authority is a whisper, and it talks to you once and then it goes away. And I don't resonate with that at all, because sometimes my splenic authority yells at me and sometimes and I don't think of it as like this one-time thing where, oh, you missed your opportunity and it's never to come back. I think of it like in any given moment, there's all these different, if we're in the quantum field, there's all these different possibilities. And in this moment right now, if I tap in with my spleen, I'm going to be tapped into what all the possibilities are in this moment. Versus 2 minutes from now, if I tap into my spleen again, I may have done something that shifted the timelines so that maybe the thing I was originally contemplating that wasn't correct for me in that moment is now correct for me because I've done something that shifted. And I think about it like, you never know exactly the consequences of your own, of like each little action, like the butterfly effect that it's going to have. Because I think I even give this example on the recording, but it's like, I could leave in my car for work at, right at 8 o'clock, or I could leave in my car for work at 8:02. And if I leave at 8 o'clock, I get in a car accident that significantly changes my life. If I leave at 8:02, I don't get in a car accident. So it's like, to me, that's what our spleen is doing, is it's always calibrating to the next now moment. And the other thing I tell people with splenic authority is it's body awareness. So it's body awareness and it's survival. So if you are neglecting your basic survival needs, if you're hungry, if you're thirsty, if you're tired, it's probably not a good time to make a big life decision, because your spleen is saying that's not safe. But really what it's saying is like, that's not safe because you're too tired for that right now, or because you don't have enough food for that right now, or whatever. So that's another really common thing. And the same thing I said before with sacral authority, like you're going to be really susceptible to taking in emotions from other people. So just watch out for that. Okay, so then the next one up would be if you have all 4 of those lower centers are undefined. So you have your solar plexus is undefined, your root's undefined, your sacral's undefined, and your spleen's undefined, but you have a defined heart, then you're going to have heart authority, or it's a lot of times called ego authority. And this is going to be different whether you're a manifester or you're a projector. So if you're a manifester with ego authority, then this one's really fascinating. And if Matt is here and wants to chime in, feel free. But the way it's often described in human design is like, okay, if you're a manifester with this, then you need to talk it out to hear your truth. And then whatever you blurt out is your truth. But what I've learned from talking to Matt about this is that that's not actually true. It's actually that what you're blurting out in that moment is going to be your truth, but depending on what theme of consciousness you're in. So another way I've heard this described that I love from Vanessa Henry, who's also an ego manifested manifester, is she says that, yes, you need to talk it out to arrive to clarity, but you need to talk long enough for your heart to override your head. And I think of it like, another way you can think about it is like, you need to talk loud enough to like, or you need to talk long enough to like almost work your way up to love and to your truth to get out of your ego. And what's really interesting, I know like Matt and Ash have talked about this a lot, is that the great thing about having a reflector in your life as a manifester, especially as an ego manifested manifester, is that the reflector can like reflect back to you like, no, that you said that, but you were in pride when you said that. So that's not really your highest truth. Or like, you said that out of fear, so that's not your highest truth. So it's about talking it out. It's about talking it out with people who are not trying to give you advice, but talking out with people who like can reflect back to you like, this is your truth or not. And your voice will literally sound different when you're speaking your truth. And then ego projected authority. So this, if you have ego authority but you're a projector, first of all, this is an extremely rare type. So if you have this, please reach out to me. I would love to talk to you because this is like more rare than being a reflector, and I've never met anybody with this type, and there's not very much information on it. So really, what we know about this type of authority is that you're very open projector, and you're very connected to if something is worth your time, effort, and energy or not. Because the heart center is all about efficiency. Am I using my energy in a way that's valuable to myself and the tribe? So to you, it's as cheesy as it is, it's like about literally following your heart and following your desires, because your pure desires, or like your desires that are in alignment with your highest self, are also in alignment with everybody that's around you. So yeah, reach out to me if you have this.
Solid.
And then working your way up. So if you have all 5 of those lower centers undefined, so root, solar plexus, sacral, spleen, and heart, then by default you're going to be either a projector or reflector, because like now we've wiped away all the motor centers. So the next one up that would have authority would be the G center. So if you're a projector who has like all those lower centers are undefined, but you have a defined G center connecting up to your heart, then you have... Sorry, my nephew is ego authority projector. I've always wondered about this. Oh my gosh, I would love to meet him. How old is he? So yeah, if you're a projector and you have a defined G center, then your G center is also going to be connected to your throat. And similar to with ego authority with manifestors, you're going to need to talk it out to get to clarity. And it's the same thing where you need people around you who are not really asking you for permission, or you're not asking them for advice necessarily, but they're basically, you're using them as a sounding board. You're using these people who know you really well and see you really well. Especially as a projector, we need people who really see us. So having people around us who see us, who we can talk it out with and soundboard with, basically, if you think about it, like you have a very defined identity, and you have a defined way that your soul expresses itself. And for you, when you speak directly from your heart and from your soul. And by talking it out like that, it allows you to get out of your head, because when you're in your head, our thinking can be very circular and repetitive. But for you guys, by talking it out, it forces you to put what you're feeling in a linear way. And when you say something that is your truth, you will literally feel it in your body that that's your truth. And I have witnessed this with friends of mine who have this type of authority. Sometimes they'll literally just talk for like 10 minutes straight, and I won't even say a word. And then there will come a point where they'll be like, oh, never mind, I got it. Thank you so much. And I'll be like, great, so glad I did my job. Because sometimes that's all it takes. Okay, so then moving up, the next authority type. So now we're moving into people who automatically will have a lot of openness, because again, they don't have any of those lower centers. So people who have basically no defined centers below the throat, but they have some combination of their throat, their ajna, and their crown defined. These are people who are called mental projectors. And this one's really especially fascinating because like this authority type is often called mental authority or environment authority. And it's a trip because we're not really designed to make decisions from our minds. But for mental projectors, one of their only defined energies is their mind and the way that they process through information consistently. And all mental projectors have a very specific point of view that they have on the world and specific way that they see the world. So this is similar to the types who have to talk it out, but for mental projectors, they talk it out, but they talk it out in all of their environments that feel good to them. Because they're so open, they're very, very similar to reflectors, because they're taking in their environment really deeply. And the only thing that really makes them different from a reflector is that they're processing it through their mind, through something that's consistent. So they go to all their different environments that feel good to them. They talk it out. They have different people they soundboard with. And then it's almost as though for mental projectors, it's like they go to all their different groups, and it's like they're almost like they're mining for clues of their truth, of like what they see so uniquely. And then usually after spending a lot of time talking, they eventually get to clarity. But this is an authority type just from experience I've seen takes a lot of time. One of my exes has this, and actually I discovered human design during our relationship, and it was a game changer because me being splenic authority, I have very like instant clarity in the moment, and it actually doesn't serve me to talk to people about it. It trips me up to talk to people. But for him, he needed to talk a lot, and he needed to talk over a long period of time with lots of people. And I used to be like, why are you talking to all these different people? You're going to confuse yourself. And then with me making a decision, he would be like, well, why did you make that decision without me? I feel like you don't even care what I think. And so when we learned this about each other, even though he really didn't believe in human design that much, he believed in this. And it gave us like a language and a framework behind the situation that was happening. Once we understood that about each other, then I was like, oh, this is just how you work, and you need to go off and do this, and that's beautiful. And he knew that for me, that I wasn't gonna like talk to him necessarily about a lot of my decisions. And we came to this understanding. And then, okay, so now you have, now after mental projectors, the only thing that's left is reflectors. And so we kind of already talked about reflectors, but their decision-making strategy or their authority is to wait a lunar cycle. Another thing I've heard a lot of reflectors say is that it's not really like you necessarily have to wait a full cycle. It's actually that like there are certain times in the month where you'll feel like you kind of arrive to clarity, and you'll just kind of know those are the best times to make decisions. But it kind of just, with reflectors, it's kind of like a trial and error experimentation process. So that's kind of a basic overview of the authority types, but definitely check out the other resources I have in the drive. Okay, I'm gonna need some water. I talked a lot
Oh,
without
yeah?
stopping. Open throat things.
Hey, you did good. You want to stay on
Okay,
this slide?
so, oh my gosh, we're doing really good on time. It's only been an hour.
Solid.
Look at that. Okay, so we're gonna transition into profile lines. So if I could have you help me with that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What do you need? You want that slide up? Is
Yeah.
that what you're saying? Okay.
It got really warm here all of a sudden, you guys. It's been like, okay, we're in Sedona still, and it's been so cold, so windy,
It's been rough here.
cloudy, and
Rain.
like
It rained.
suddenly it's like sunny, no clouds in the sky,
Yeah.
no chemtrails.
That's a surprise.
Did
I don't know about
did
that.
I say that out loud?
I don't know about that.
Um,
Actually, yeah, it looks pretty clear out there.
yeah, and it's like actually kind of toasty in our little tent. We
Yeah.
got a second tent too. It's like our second little room.
We have a 2-bedroom,
True.
1 bath, rooftop tent.
Let's go.
That's right.
Okay, so profile lines. So you guys, I get so jacked on profile lines. I don't know
Why?
why they're my favorite. It's because, okay, I was kind of talking about this at the beginning as people were coming in, but to me, the profile lines are like everything else up to this point was how you do what you're here to do. Like everything else that we've talked about, your energy type, your authority type, your centers, that's just like mechanical stuff. It's like how you give and receive and how you operate with everybody around you and how you cooperate with people. Profile is like who you're here to be. It's like the archetype of what you're here to do. And it also a lot of the times gives us clues into like how we gain and share wisdom with those around us. And I was listening to if you're in the yoga teacher training, then you know that the last workshop we did was chakra psychology with Matt. And I was listening to him talk about the third eye and how that's like our archetypal.
Sure.
He's better with words. Archetypal. It's how we start to have discernment and see patterns and recognize like our archetype. And then he started talking about how human design is like a way that you can study your archetype and how you can like through developing your 6th chakra and seeing patterns, you can study human design and you can understand your archetype. And to me, like the profile is like the bread and butter of your human design archetype. And chances are, like no matter what your authority type is, you're actually going to relate more to people with your same profile than you will to people with your other energy type. So I'm a 4/6 profile, and I should probably stop sharing this for now since I'm just talking. I'm a 4/6 profile, and I just like crazy will attract all these different people who also have a 4/6 profile. Like we just find each other. And I have a good friend named Kelsey who's a 4/6 profile, but she's a manifesting generator, but she's a 4/6 profile. And like so often we're like, oh my gosh, are we the same person? And like the way she does things is very different than the way I do things. But like our fundamental core, like this, almost like the lesson our soul came here to have, is very, very similar. So anyway, 5/1. Oh my gosh, so is wind. I don't know if wind's in here. I love my 5/1s. 6/2, 4/6, 4/6, 6/2. Yay! Yeah, see, I knew we had a few 4/6s on here. That's
My
amazing.
3/5 homie.
This is 3/5. Yep, Nick is a 3/5 too. Lots of experience with that one. 1/3.
So good variety.
Yeah, there's 12 different ones total. And that's the other thing too, is like, again, a lot of like generators or manifesting generators even might discover human design for the first time and be like, I'm not unique because generators are 30% of the population.
Yeah.
Keep in mind that the audio is cutting in and out. Okay, I think we're back.
Yes.
Okay, can you guys hear me? I see that I'm back on the screen.
Technology.
Are we good? Are we good?
I don't know.
I can
I
hear
love-
you in the video.
Yay! Okay, great. Thank you guys. Sorry,
It's
we
that hot in Sedona that the camera overheated.
are literally it's also part of our profile to learn through experimentation. So real life examples here. Okay, great. Now I'm gonna screen share. Oh my gosh, look at me doing things without Nick.
No, what are you doing?
Okay.
What is you doing?
I started screen sharing. I'm figuring it out.
Congratulations.
Okay.
Well,
So-
just first, before you start, since we had it plugged in with a dummy battery, which means that it lasts the whole time, but this one's already, we're gonna have to switch out the batteries at some point, so that's the thing. That's just a thing, okay?
I appreciate your willingness, babe.
Sure. That's the way she goes. What can you do, right?
Full acceptance.
Yep.
Okay, we're back, I think. So,
Yeah, go ahead. I'm gonna try and figure out how to put shade on the camera.
yeah.
Do your thing.
So I'm gonna talk and he's gonna do that. And that's why I have him right here with me so that he can like see the things that happen in real time. I'm so grateful for you because I don't know how to do any of this myself. So,
Well, good.
yay. Okay.
Sure.
Okay, so first off,
I got you.
when we're looking at a chart, and I know that there's a lot of like little technical things, but I like to just share this with you guys so that when you're looking at a chart, you always know how it works and you know how to piece it together. So where the profile lines come from is, well, so first of all, your profile is always made up of two different lines. When you're looking at your human design chart and you're looking at the overview of all your information, your profile is going to look like that funky decimal or that funky fraction that's like two numbers separated by a slash. So where those numbers are derived from is when you look at your chart, they're going to be the top two decimal placements. So this is my chart, for example, and it always goes, I don't know why human design does the things it does, but it's backwards. So I'm a 4-6, and so they get the 4 from what's on the right side, and then they get the second number, or for me it's a 6, from the left side. So the other reason I want to point this out to you guys is because when you're looking at your profile, and as we're going through all 6 of these lines, keep in mind that the first number is going to be your conscious personality or your conscious archetype. So whatever is on, and this goes for everything that's on that right side or that black side, it's going to be how you perceive yourself. So this is going to be likely the archetype that you're most familiar with, whereas the second number, or the number in red, or the number that's on the left side, is going to be how other people perceive you. And so this may be a part of your personality or part of your archetype that you're not always very familiar with in yourself, but other people perceive in you, maybe even more so than your first number. Okay, so all the other stuff, super technical. Yeah, so this basically is just going over what I just said. Okay, and so the reason I love going through the lines is because to me, they really tell a story of like how we evolved as a humanity. And one thing that I noticed very quickly from studying this with the help of my friend, my good friend who's on here, Wind, is that all of the profile lines are also connected to the first 6 chakras in the original Hindu chakra system of 7. Very, very intertwined and connected with the 6 chakras. And what I have kind of observed from working with people one-on-one is that a lot of times with the profile, those numbers will be very connected to certain chakras, and that person may even be like, they might even struggle a little bit more with one of those chakras. Or like using mine as an example, me being a 4-6, I have in my life, I've had an excessive sixth chakra or third eye chakra. Very, very imaginative. I use my mind to escape things. I, for a long time, wasn't really connected with my physical body, or I thought that I was connected with my physical body, but actually, I was overrunning my body so much that I was actually really, really out of tune with like what my own limits were. But I've always been a very imaginative child, very, very, very good at seeing patterns and thinking about things logically and seeing bigger pictures and things like that. So what I've noticed in my life is that I had an excessive sixth chakra, and I had a lot of times a deficient fourth chakra. And having a deficient fourth chakra has been something that I've had to really work through in my life, especially with the theme of grief and having trouble letting go of people and certain situations. And we'll get into that more when we talk about the fourth line. But I'm going to, as I go along, tie in and make connections to the chakras. And if you're already familiar with the chakras, or if you have either watched Matt Nash's workshop that's all about it, or read the book Eastern Body, Western Mind, it's absolutely my favorite book about my favorite book on the chakras. I still reference it all the time. It's very, very heady and very, I almost use it like a textbook, and I kind of refer back to it a lot, but absolutely love it because it ties in our kind of Western psychology principles with the Eastern philosophy of the chakras. So, okay, so as we go, okay, so also, for the sake of just seeing patterns, lines 1, 2, and 3 are what we call the personal lines. So these 3 profile lines are very much about gaining wisdom for itself and learning for itself and having a personal experience. Whereas lines 4, 5, and 6 are all about externalizing wisdom. These are the parts of us that are like, okay, now I've learned this. How do I share this with the world? How do I get this out to the world? And the 1 and the 4, as you'll see, are kind of naturally harmonious. The 2 and the 5 are naturally harmonious, and the 3 and the 6 are naturally harmonious. So if you're someone who has these are kind of more rare profile types, but if you're a 1-4, a 2-5, a 3-6, or vice versa, if you're 4-1, a 5-2, or a 6-3, then your profile archetypes are going to be a little bit more harmoniously balanced with each other. And that'll make sense too as we go. Okay, so diving into line 1. So line 1 in traditional human design language is called the investigator. And I actually really like that because when I think of line 1, it's very, very root chakra-like. It's all about building a foundation and creating stability from which to launch from, and creating that stability primarily for itself, because the 1 line is very inwardly focused. It's very introspective. But as the 1 line gains stability for itself, it creates a foundation or a solid place for other people to actually launch from too. And I think about when we think about chakras, and the other reason why I really like that book, Eastern Body, Western Mind, is that she talks about the development of our chakras when we're kids. And she actually even breaks down the different stages, like developmental stages that we go through as the chakras develop. So when I think about line 1, I think about a baby whose root chakra is developing, and this primarily happens between when we're in the womb until we're about 12 months old or 1 year old. And so when you think about a baby in this stage of life, babies in this stage of life have very little awareness that they are separate from the world. So for them, the way they experience their internal reality is kind of a direct result of how they experience their mother or their father or their caregiver. And for a baby, they're literally learning about themselves through studying the world. The babies in this phase are really focused on developing their motor skills so that they can survive, so they can have that foundation from which to grow, so that they, it's really focused on like reaching, grasping, sucking, can I roll over, all those sorts of things. Can I make sure my needs are met, sort of a thing. So same thing with the line 1 in human design, these are people who really learn about themselves by studying the world. These are the people who are deeply passionate and fascinated by understanding how things work. And for one line, it's literally, it literally does them a disservice to just like take somebody's word for it. For them, they have to go straight to the source of the information and study it for themselves to gain basically their own solid foundation. These are people who are most likely to be experts in something. But again, it's kind of like they're studying this stuff not really necessarily for other people, but just for the sake of their own creativity and their own creative process and their own inspiration. And helping people usually comes as a result of them being experts in something. And what I've noticed is that all the people in my life who have a line 1 in their profile, these are the people who I go to as like the very trustworthy sources of information. Like when I have a one-line friend that I know is really passionate about something, if I ask them a question about it, like I know that I'm going to get the most thorough, well-researched, trustworthy answer. And I also know that a one-line is also the type of person who, when they don't know something, they will admit that they don't know something, or they will refer you to a resource, or they will get back to you at a later time, which is something that I really appreciate about them. And so a lot of times, a line 1, something that they oftentimes kind of have to like balance in their life is, I see people with this struggle oftentimes with fear, especially like a fear of inadequacy, or a fear of not knowing enough, or a fear of like just putting themselves out there. And so for one line's important thing for them to understand is that at a certain point, you just have to take a leap of faith and understand that the knowledge base that you have right now is enough, and it's going to be the perfect amount of information for somebody, for whoever you're going to teach first. Because I think a lot of times one lines will hold themselves back because they think, I don't know enough, especially if they have an open head. Oh my gosh. They think, I don't know enough. I need to keep studying. I need to keep diving down into the rabbit hole. But understanding that, like, first of all, you're always going to know what you need to know for this given moment, but also you're always going to attract the people who need you in that moment. And for you to, like, hold yourself back from teaching just because, for teaching or sharing or putting your gifts out there because you think you don't know enough, is like doing yourself and the world a disservice. So that's a big thing for line 1s. Yeah, I think I pretty much said.
You go with line 1?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, these are people who, yeah, they need to know like the nuts and bolts of things. Yeah, it's like whatever field you get into because you just have a deep fascination for like how things work. You're not really getting into it for the people. The people are just the side effect almost. Yeah, I think that's everything.
About to go into 2?
Yeah.
We take
What's
a
up?
20-second commercial break.
We're going to take a 20-second commercial break.
I'm going to literally put this in.
Okay,
and turn it
sounds
back
good.
on.
That
Okay?
sounds great.
Then we shouldn't have any problems.
Okay, perfect.
All right.
That was a lot faster than 20 seconds.
Hey, you know, we're working with it. Okay, we should be good. Hopefully we'll be good for the rest of the time. So, go ahead.
Okay.
We go in line 2?
Sauna, it's like you're talking about me. So sauna, there's a couple reasons for that. One is that the 4 line is also very foundational, like the 1 line. It's just that we set a foundation in our network, and we'll get into that in a second. And also, you know what? I'm just going to come back around to that because otherwise I'm just going to get too deep into it. Line 1 here, definitely a previous pitfall. to keep searching for more and more information. Yes. Again, especially if you have an open head, or if you have in your spleen, if you have gate 48, that's another one to watch out for, of like not feeling like you ever know enough. So Sana, you might have that gate. I don't remember.
I actually said that when you were talking about being a 4/6 and talking
Oh,
about
okay,
your,
okay. Thank you.
yeah, talking about your heart chakra and your sixth chakra. That's when I was like, oh my God, you're talking about me.
I got you, girl. Yeah. And really fascinating story about me and Sana finding each other, because energy doesn't lie, you guys. Sana and I not only are both 4/6 splenic projectors, but we also, like when you look at our charts, they look almost identical because we both only have our root and our spleen defined. So it's funny because I've also just like from doing readings for a while, like I tend to, I just tend to attract people who have like very similar looking things as me, even if they don't have any idea that our charts are the same. I love that. You don't get into it for the people, it's a side effect. I so agree. I love to study and research for the sake of it. Yeah, exactly. And for a lot of, like, this is literally your gift to give to the world, because the rest of us who don't have a line 1 in our profile or don't have a lot of line 1s in our charts, we don't have the energy for that. So, like, we literally rely on you guys to, like, come back to you. Like, that's
Yeah, that's so true.
one thing, like, because Wind is a 5/1, and like I know that when I go to Wind, that she's gonna give me the well-researched answer. Like, I don't have time to do the research, but she loves doing the research. So it's not like anybody's losing out or like she's doing the brunt work or anything. Like, she actually enjoys it. So it's beautiful that we get to all do the thing that we enjoy. I love that. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to
What you need?
I'm figuring it out.
Oh, solid.
so proud.
Let's go.
Okay. People hate that I ask so many questions, but because of human design, I started to embrace it. Yes, exactly.
Oh yeah.
Yes, line 1s are the people, like, you're the investigators. You're the ones who ask all the really good questions. One line. I used to love working with people until I got super exhausted of all of the BS and people just expecting answers with no context when I just wanted to find the real freaking answers. Yes, Candy, I love that.
I like how when you read it, the caps, when they put caps, you actually emphasize it.
So it's an hour, yeah. So like these are also our people who like, especially 1/3 profiles, or especially if like your 1 line is the first one in your profile. So if you're 1/3 or 1/4, like these are people where like you're not going to like make any moves in your life until like you've researched every part of that. And like it's fascinating because like I call Wind when I want information. Wind's partner Ethan is a 1/3 profile, and Nick will call Ethan, or like Wind will be like, have Nick call Ethan because Ethan knows everything. Because it's true, Ethan like
This
knows...
man's just got information out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's so wild. It's so wild.
It's good.
And so because of this, like these are people who are like oftentimes they're either very, very grounded and very balanced in their root chakra because they're very connected to like oftentimes like the physical plane of how things work. Or I've also seen the opposite where like when they're out of alignment and they're not trusting themselves and they're not giving themselves the space for the introspection and the research and all the time, they can feel very ungrounded and unstable and have an unbalanced root chakra. So I've seen it manifest different ways. Okay, so the line 2 to me is like the most fascinating because I have like only 1-2 line in my whole chart, and that'll make sense at the end. But to me, 2 lines are like here to be the total opposite of the 1. So the 2 line, again, if the 1 line is like very root chakra oriented and it's about creating the base and the container to hold the water, the line 2 is like the water itself. So we're transitioning out of the earth element into the water element. And so these are the people who, rather than knowing where they get their information from or knowing how they know what they know. These are people who, like, rather than with the line 1, they learn about themselves through studying the world. For a line 2, they learn about the world by going within. They learn about the world by studying themselves. So they're not here to know why or how they know what they know. They're here to have natural gifts and abilities and to tune into those natural gifts and abilities and basically find for them like whatever the path of least resistance is. And it's not that as a 2-line, you can definitely still be very fascinated by information. You can still read books, you can still research. Matt is a 6-2 and he's very analytical and very well read and well spoken. But if you're a 2-line, you're not here to regurgitate information. You know, a 1-line can like have all the facts and put it together in a very academic way that's very captivating. A 2-line is not here to do that. They're here to have their unique spin on things, no matter what they're here to do. And so for them, like their process of learning and kind of gaining information and wisdom has to feel very playful. It has to feel like themselves, like they are able to be themselves. And that's why the 2-line in original human design language is called the hermit. I've never really liked the hermit name for the archetype because I don't think it doesn't sound very empowering.
What do you think it should be?
I think it should be the natural.
The natural?
Yeah, because these are people who have natural gifts and abilities. And one example that Ra would always give with the 6 lines, he used this analogy of the house. The 1 lines are the foundation of the house. And they're people who they're always expanding their foundation. They're making sure it's sturdy. If somebody comes along and puts a jackhammer in their foundation, they come and patch it up, or they make it even better. So they're always researching and learning so that we have a solid base, stable base to launch from. Now the 2nd line, he said, was like the first floor of the house. And imagine that there's somebody who's in the first floor of the house and all the windows are open, and this person who's in the house is dancing, singing, creating. They're just being themselves, and they're not really thinking about it. They're just doing whatever comes naturally to them. And they're not really even very self-aware of it. And meanwhile, there's people that are walking by the house with the windows open, and they're looking in and they're seeing this person doing all these things, and they knock on the door and they say, you know what, I watched you do this and you're such a natural at it. Can you do this for me? Or like, hey, I have a theater and I need a dancer and you're a very good dancer. Can you come dance at my theater? That's, you know, it could be anything though. It's like, oh, I love the way you decorated your house. Can you come be an interior designer for me? Or, you know, I love the way that you, I was watching you tutor your kids and you're so good with them. Can you come tutor my kids? Like it could be anything. Richard Rudd also called this archetype the dancer because it's about being fluid. It's about being fluid in life. It's very sacral chakra, being fluid. And going back to tying this into the chakras, as babies transition in their development out of the root chakra and they transition into the sacral chakra, this is when babies, they learn to sit up. And by learning to sit up, they now have clear vision and they can look out in the world and they can see what they want and desire. And these are basically, if you think about babies in the root chakra phase, they would cry to get their physical needs met. They would cry because they're hungry, cry because they're tired, or whatever. Kids in the sacral chakra phase, they will cry because they want things, or because they're not getting what they want, or because they're starting to have feelings and emotions about stuff, and they can't. And it's still involuntary, right? Because we don't really become self-aware and ego-aware until we get into our 3rd chakra. So they're still not able to really control. You can't really control your feelings. You can control how your feelings affect you. You can control how attached you are to your feelings. You can't control your desires. You can control your response and reaction to your desires. They can change over time. You know, that's why I think like recovering addicts, they they'll often say like, oh, I don't even desire that anymore. It's because over time with self-discipline, their desires literally change. But side tangent now, but basically you see that in the sacral chakra, you're learning to feel, but it's still not very voluntary. It's just things that are naturally coming up to you. So it's the same thing with the second line. It's like you have these natural skills and they just kind of come up, and you're not always self-aware of them. So you need people in your life who see you for you, and who let you be you, but can reflect back to you that like, hey, these are things that you're really good at. You should get out and do these things. And these are people who are they're going to be called out for their gifts, no matter who they are. They're always putting a projection field out into the world of like, these are the things that I'm here to do.
I want to
Okay,
say something.
so a lot of times people with a line 2, what I often see is like a theme of consciousness they may struggle with a lot is guilt, because they have a lot of like almost self-judgments about the ways that they do things, because we live in a world where we are very analytical, we're very logical, we're very in our heads, and people want to know, like they want to know, how are you good at those things, or how did you get that information, or how did you develop this? And a second line, they're not here to do that. And so a lot of like a big lesson for them in particular is like learning to overcome those things. Okay.
All
let's
right.
see if
How many
there's
2
anything
lines did we
else.
have in here?
we had a couple 6-2s.
Couple 6-2s, huh?
Yeah.
Yes, I think someone's trying to talk.
Yeah, I think Ash is trying to talk, but you're very like far away.
Ash, your voice is really soft.
Oh, really? Okay, can you hear me? I don't
Oh,
know.
can you stop sharing, babe?
Yeah, I can like hear Ash, but it's really quiet.
Yeah, I can hear you, Ash. Like I can hear that you're talking, but I can't hear what you're saying.
Darn. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there we go.
Better.
Better.
Okay, I have to kind of yell. So Matt's a line 2, and I found that really interesting listening to you explain that, because I don't think I've really done much line 2 research. And with him, it's like he's this naturally gifted person, but he's in his own world,
Yes.
and he like literally has no awareness about, oh, I could use this to like share and affect people and like have an impact. He doesn't even think that. And I notice him and I'm like, wow, we should get you on camera talking about those things. And he's like, no, why? No. Like he doesn't have any interest in actually, like Matt wouldn't be doing anything that he's doing today if I didn't push him into it, because he literally would have just been a hermit. He would have just never shared it, which is so weird. Like he had his blog, he like kind of was writing about it, but that was safe because it was like hidden. And it was whenever he felt the urge and the inspiration. But like when it came to actually healing and working with people one-on-one and doing everything we do now, he would have never, ever, ever did this on his own, because he just likes doing what he does for himself and didn't even see the potential of like the impact like at all. It's so weird to me, because he's obviously very gifted, but just didn't even think, nope. And feels annoyed, honestly, when he gets pushed to like put himself out there. He's like, no, I'm good. Like I don't need to like share my gifts.
Oh my god, I love that so much. Thank you for sharing that.
It's just
Yeah.
so weird.
Yeah, totally. And especially because his 2 line is on the unconscious side, so that adds a whole other element to it, where a lot of times 2 lines who are like a 5-2 or 6-2, they don't even know that they're hermiting out. They don't even know that like, oh really, I'm keeping my gifts from the world? I didn't even notice that these were my gifts. You know what I mean? And like especially too as a manifester and like not even knowing how you impact people, it's a really fascinating combo. But I also love that we're talking about Matt, because Matt is very, I mean, he has researched a lot of things in his life and he's learned a lot of things. So there's a lot of qualities about him that may seem like a one line, but when you really listen to Matt speak, there's something very natural about the way he delivers information. And when he delivers information, you know that it's like yes, he's referencing these other things, but it's always from his own unique spin or his own unique lens. And every two line that I know is like that. Like they have this very fluid quality to the way that they speak and the way that they teach that like none of the other lines can truly get at, which is really fascinating.
Yeah.
And leads me back to the point of
And
like, yeah.
he also tries to like not do things the way it was studied. Like he'll just go off the deep end and people will be like, okay, but like academically it needs to be blah blah blah, and he'll be like, I don't care, I'm gonna do it this way. And then he'll get resistance because it's not the way it's supposed to be academically, and then he'll just do whatever he feels like doing.
Yeah.
And people will be like, you're a quack.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And Richard Rudd, who founded the Gene Keys, he also talks about the lines, and what he says about the two line is that like the two line really is destined to be in like some sort of partnership so that their partner can kind of mirror stuff back to them, which is exactly what you do for him. And yeah, I also think of it too, like in a sense, they're here to help us like become our own inner authority and like find what the natural path of least resistance is for us, and like almost be a rebel to the line one in a way, but obviously not in like in a competition way, because we need both. But they're definitely here to be to add polarity to our world.
Mm-hmm. Solid. All right. On to the 3.
Are you excited? This is about you.
Hey, yeah, I am actually.
Yeah. Not only is Nick a 3-5, but he's like, he has so much 3-line energy in the other places of his chart. I don't know what my hair is doing right now. So I always like, Nick pointed this out to me. I like play with my headband almost as a nervous tick. And so like through what I've noticed is like, I'll have this the way that I want it in the beginning,
And then I'll just go whoop.
and then it'll get messed up somehow. But it's okay. We're figuring it out as we go. Okay, why is the wind coming now? All right.
Windy.
So,
All right.
okay, so moving on up, the lines and the chakras. So, the line, as we move out of the line 1 and the line 2, we move into the line 3.
Oh wait, you should talk about the elements, because that's also another.
Yeah, and so
That's another thing. That's really cool. I like that a lot.
yeah, so the line 1 is very earth. It's very setting the foundation for things, getting grounded. And you can also think about this, like if we're thinking about this from an evolutionary perspective, the line 1 represents a time in our humanity where we were literally like cavemen, and we were like studying the world, and we were kind of off on our own, doing our own thing and learning through what we saw in the world. And then like the 2 line comes along, and that's when, oh, like now I have this polarity of me versus the other person, and like how do I interact with them differently than they, you know, how do they do things differently from me?
The
Like,
water kind of shapes the
and
earth.
then the water, yeah, and then the second chakra and the second line is very like the element of water. It's like very fluid. It's what it shapes. The earth and the water work together synergistically, because the earth creates a container for the water, but then the water gives purpose and meaning to the earth. It allows life to live there. It's kind of like the divine feminine gives the divine masculine purpose. Water gives earth purpose. It gives it the ability to have life, to host living things, and it also shapes the earth. And like I said, it's line 2 is very fluid, very natural.
Yeah, and it's like the line 2 with water. It's like it doesn't, if water's stagnant, if it doesn't have a mirror, just like you were saying, then it's not going to do anything.
Ooh,
With it,
I like that.
You know?
Yeah.
So then you have the other lines, which will give it form.
Yeah, exactly. And so the line 3 is here to basically build on the wisdom that we gained from earth and water, to combine elements and to combine what we learned by studying the world, what we learned by going within. And the line 3 is a lot more interested in, okay, but what is actually useful? What is actually practical? So the line 3 are the people who have a line 3 in their profile are the people who they can't just like learn about something. They need to go out and experiment with it and get their hands messy. And they're here to literally evolve and mutate and be the change makers. And they're like little experimenters. They're the alchemists. They create something new. They create something new out of the physical elements. So it's like fire. Fire is alchemy. Fire is what allows chemical reactions to happen. It's what allows us to cook food, which then transforms our food. And it's really, really all about transformation. And so we think about really fascinating, again, to tie it back to the chakras. So Jax just wants to be in here with us.
Sorry, the dog. It's like, what are you doing?
He's like, I want to know. I want to play with my friends.
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
So,
Sorry.
So tying it back to the chakras again. So chakra 3 is all about willpower and developing our sense of control and our ego identity. And Anno Dea Judith talks about this with kids. It develops between 18 months and 4 years. And really fascinating because kids at this stage are very, they're moving. They're very like willpower focused. Because like kids in the sacral chakra phase, you know, they will walk and they will crawl to like get at what they want, to get at their desires. But kids in the solar plexus chakra 3 phase of development, this is when they learn, okay, I don't just crawl forwards, I don't just walk forwards to get what I want. Now I experiment with my movement. I can now walk forward, backwards, sideways. I can experiment with my toys. Like I can actually play with things. If I build something and I knock it over, it creates a noise and that's funny. So kids in that stage are very adventurous. They learn how to climb. They're very curious, and they're basically like, they're going out and they're being the little scientists in the world. And they're really learning all about like cause and effect. And to me, that's exactly what the line 3 is also here to do. They're here to learn about things through cause and effect. The original language of the line 3 is the martyr. And again, not always super empowering language, but the reason why it's called the martyr is because the line 3 is that person who's like, you know what? I went out and I tried this thing, and take my word for it, it's not worth it, and here's why. And so it's like they have this martyr voice in them that like, hey, I tried this and I discovered all the ways that don't work in order to discover the way that does work, in order to be able to tell that to you so that you don't have to make the same mistakes that I did. So a line 3 has to get very, very comfortable with failure, or what is like perceived failure, and like understanding that like actually nothing in life is a mistake. It's just a pathway towards success. Like you gotta just, like I said, you gotta discover all those things that don't work in order to discover things that do work. And these are people who like you gotta get out, you gotta have adventure in your life. You almost have to weave an element of change into your life to feel like yourself and to feel happy. But when you're in alignment, it's truly magical because you're here to revolutionize the way we do things and to come up with totally new ways of doing things. And also, another thing I say about line 3s a lot is that because you've literally like done it all, tried it all, and seen it all, you guys are like, not only are you the most relatable, but you're also have like the best senses of humor. And like tend to be really funny because like to me humor is really just relatability. Like I heard a comedian say one time that like he said something and then somebody in the front row said, "Oh my god, that's so true." And he said, "Yeah, it's so true. That's why it's funny. Like it's true, hence funny. Like it's relatable. That's why it's funny." So I always say like because he's a 3-5, he is just like intrinsically funny. Like I can be situationally funny, like if I'm around funny people
like
or funny situations, yeah, I can be funny, but like yeah. I'm not funny like he's funny. Like he just like says things. I'm just like cracking up all the time. Like
hey.
So, and like
living in alignment.
All the other 3 lines I know who are like really in alignment with themselves, especially 3/5s, are like freaking hilarious. So you have this like naturally kind of like likable quality to you. And the other thing too is that because you're designed to literally bump into life, like you're designed to like, Ra said bonds made and broken, like you're designed to like bump into things and try them and then like break it off if it's not in alignment. And this can also happen a lot in relationships. Like you can bump into people and have maybe a short-term relationship with them and then realize like that person's really not for me.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
you're really good at like cutting it off because it's like for you like bonds made and broken. Okay, let's move it on. And you're
Yep.
naturally very resilient and like made for change. So for me, because like I am not like this.
She
like
can't do it.
As a 4/6.
Well, she can. It's just tough.
Like we'll get into that when we talk about 4s, but like as a 4/6, like we are not made, like 4 lines are not made for like breaking bonds very easily. We deal with grief very deeply and change is hard. And so for me, like having a 3 line in my life is so helpful because like they're the ones who like hold our hands and are like, oh honey, it's gonna be okay.
Honey, it's okay.
It's gonna be okay. You are resilient, I promise.
Yeah.
And so I've seen a lot of people with 3 lines deal with shame a lot, because especially if like as a child they weren't able to like, they didn't feel like they had the permission to like try things and make mistakes, and they weren't in an environment that really fostered that type of learning. This can lead to like developing shame around like, oh, like is something wrong with me, because like things just always seem to be going wrong in my life, like there's gotta be something wrong with me. So I've seen that happen a lot. I've also seen and I've also seen like a lot of like guilt of like judging their own basically perceived failures or mistakes or whatever. So I've seen those like both be themes that people with the 3
Huge.
lines have to work through.
It's huge. All my 3 lines out there, just understand that
I gotta move
if
my
you
leg.
if you actually live in alignment and you try a lot of different things, and you're going to come to a point where you just realize that you have to either make a decision. You either say that something's wrong with you, or live in that disempowerment, or you actually, and this is recent, like
Yeah.
it comes up, not just once, but it may come up because you're trying so many things and sometimes things don't work out. But it's so important to understand that you're brave enough to go where a lot of people aren't going. And that's not to say they're not brave, but that's just what that's what you incarnated with, and that's a gift that you can use. And so you can persevere, but just don't blame yourself, because I've been there and it's a dead end, really is what it is.
Yeah.
That's what I've found, at least.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's hilarious. As a kid, as a 1/3 kid, I was always brewing stuff, making new drinks from tea with chocolate sprinkles, soy sauce, all kinds of weird stuff. Oh yeah, totally. Like totally wrapped up in your own process of experimentation. Right on, 6'3" here. Hi, Carrie. I've traveled for a living for 6 years. So changes in my blood. I'm a 3/5. Yep, we're on
know
the
how it is.
road. Yep, we're on the road too. We totally get it. And I would not be able to do what I'm doing without his resilience. I find myself funny. Does that count? Yes. Does that count?
Yeah.
Oh my god, I saw you laughing. I see. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. And I also I think of 3 lines as like the quality control check of like, okay, yeah, you can also think of this too, and this is just coming to me, of like fire. Fire is kind of like a quality control check of the earth. It like will burn up things that are not no longer relevant, or like sometimes it'll burn up old forests just naturally to make room for new stuff, because it's like, okay, we no longer need this. And like a 3 line is kind of like that. It's like, let's alchemize, let's blend together what we learned in the 1 and 2 lines, alchemize them so that we're more efficient and we have what's useful, and so that we're not like wasting our time on things, because like 3 lines like love to play. They don't want to just like for him, he's like, why do we need the instructions?
Well, just know with 3 lines too, a lot of the times you're not going to feel like doing everything. Like your
Yes.
energy is very, very much, you got to feel inspired. And if you're not doing something you're feeling inspired to do, just don't do it, because it really is going to waste your time. And that's a lot of the things that I've come to learn
Yeah.
about the 3rd line.
And some of that's like a manifesting generator thing too. But I also think like the 3 line is like the most manifesting generator of the lines in a sense. So like a lot of times 3 lines will resonate with being a man gen, even if they're not. Yeah. Is
Interesting.
Wind a 3 line? No. Yeah, Wind is a 5-1. Ethan is a 1-3. Crazy how accurate this is for me. I grew up into a perfectionist shame and had shame around failure for sure. Yeah, that's a big, big conditioning for the line 3 for sure.
Yeah, you just got to understand that everything has consequences, everything in life, and the consequences are neutral.
Exactly.
And so if you just understand that you actually have the benefit of understanding more about this reality because you're doing more in a way, then you actually have the upper hand in understanding yourself, because you know what is meant for you and what's not meant for you if you live in alignment.
Yeah, so if you have 3 line kids, like the best thing that you can do for them is like not get upset when they like have to just learn the lesson for themselves, but like trust that, like you have to like, there has to be a lot of trust as a parent of a 3 line kid that like they're gonna mess up, but that it's gonna be for their highest benefit and the highest benefit of everybody, because they have such deep, rich experience. 1-3 here, and growing up under heavy religious dogma left a heavy dent of shame on my psyche. Still sometimes takes conscious effort to let that shit go and to embrace my own purpose and gifts. Absolutely. Also never dreamed about a big wedding like other girls. Just wanted to go see the world. Yeah. Oh, gotcha.
Yep.
Yep. Okay.
That's something a lot of people go through.
Yeah, and then also too, this is where like, so Ash said, because our friend Wynn, she traveled the world with her partner Ethan, and this is where like there's so many elements of things. So like Wynn has a totally open G center in human design, which is that center of like not being really attached to any one identity or place, but like needing to be in environments that feel really good. You don't really have your own sense of direction. So a lot of times people with a totally open G center will like go and travel the world, will also go and travel the world, or like will want to experience a lot of different things because they're like looking for that environment, looking for that perfect environment that feels at home for them, or they just like love to feel different environments. So there's always so many different things at play. What did you learn from it for my kiddos? Yeah, Carrie is like, okay, I want to shout out Carrie again because I gave her a shout out, I think week 1 when I talked about emotion code, because emotion code is like literally, it's like a godsend, especially if you have an open solar plexus and you're holding on to emotions that you don't even know you're holding on to. It can help you release things at a subconscious level. But also Carrie is like a great resource for human design parenting. She's raising, forgive me, Carrie, I know you have like you have older kiddos and younger kiddos. You're raising 2 kiddos right now through the lens of human design, and she like posts about it on her stories and stuff, and it like blows my mind. It's like so amazing. It's like the future of parenting. So anyway, environment, yeah, yes. Okay, so moving on. All right, line 4. Ooh,
What?
need some water.
Water.
My voice just cracked.
Water.
I think I'm getting my vocal endurance
It's getting better.
is improving,
It is.
but it's not quite
3 hours is a long time, though.
his.
Where are we at? What time is it?
It's I think 2 o'clock. It's 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock? Do you want to take a little break? Or are you good?
No.
Because we didn't take a break this time.
No, we're good.
Okay, I'm just checking.
Yeah.
I think that's something in my design, too.
Yeah. Next week will be more movement based. This week I needed to chill. We're both tired from the eclipse and all the inner work we did yesterday, and me being day 6.
And
so.
there's more coming.
There's more coming. That's right. So yeah, we're extremely burnt right now, but we're doing a good job, I think. Okay, so
But this is your this is
I can talk
your
about
stuff.
this stuff.
This is your stuff.
that's why I'm doing this, is because like this is not taking that much energy, like I'll be tired later.
You talk about this all the time, you know?
Yeah,
So-
whether or not anybody's listening.
Hey, I'm listening.
So, okay. Okay, so then going along with, again, the evolution example. So, you know, the line 1 is the caveman who's out there discovering the world. The 2 line is that person who discovers relationship and polarity between themselves and the other person and how they do things uniquely. Line 3 is like when we discovered how to like cook and how to we discovered fire, we discovered tools, and we discovered how to do all these little things and made life more efficient. And we took everything that we learned and we really made something from it. So line 4 is transitioning into what we call the upper trigram. Remember how I said lines 1, 2, and 3 are very personal. It's like how you personally gain your wisdom. And lines 4, 5, and 6 are all about externalizing that information, getting it out there, and serving others. And so the 4th line is that first step into really connecting with others. And so this is very analogous to the 4th chakra, which is the heart, which is all about giving and receiving and balance, finding equilibrium, both internal equilibrium, so like finding your own equilibrium with masculine, feminine, and upper chakras and lower chakras, you know, body and mind, all those sorts of things, but also the balance between, you know, giving and receiving and just relationship in general. And Anodea Judith excuse me, said that kids really develop this chakra between ages 4 and 7. And also fascinating because what I've observed working with kids, by the way, I don't think I even mentioned this, but I'm pulling from my own experiences working with children. I was primarily a pediatric physical therapist, so I primarily worked with kids in my physical therapy experience. So I'm pulling from
What you've seen.
my own observations here. So kids during this phase, it's really fascinating. Like if you have a group of 3-year-olds, they mostly just play by themselves. they're in their experimentation phase. They're like wanting to build and play with all the toys, but they're not really so much interested in the other kids yet. But as kids get closer to 4 years old, it's really fascinating. They'll really start to be more concerned with playing with others, and they'll start to actually play with kids their own age, and they won't just like be in their own little isolated bubble. They'll actually like attempt to like share things and like, oh, let's play house together, and like, okay, you play with this one and I play with this one. And so you like actually see this with kids as their heart chakra is developing. So it's the same thing with the line 4. So the line 4, like the line 1, because remember the 1 and the 4 are harmonious, the 4 line is very much about building a foundation, but it's not so much about building a foundation of like physical elements or even information. 4 lines are like really here for their people. They're here to build a network of people around them. And they're really here, like Richard Rudd says that for a 4 line, they're not even, like what their career is almost like, it's almost like what's on the side. Because for them, it's like the excuse, he says. Like your career or what you do is like the excuse to just connect with people. And it's really fascinating because my mom and stepdad and my brother's girlfriend, who's like practically my sister at this point, all 4 of us are all 4/6 profiles. So we all have this 4 line consciously in our personality. And it's hilarious because with all 4 of us, we are so connected in like who we know. And I'll be talking to my mom, and it turns out that's like, oh, like my client knows your client, or like my friend knows your friend. Like we're so, like the 4 of us like see the world as like a web of how we're connected with others. And my stepdad, he always says, I mean, he's had many different careers. He was a successful business owner for a while, but he always says like, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And to me, that's like the embodiment of the line 4. And the line 4 was originally by Ra. He called it the opportunist. And the opportunist can sometimes sound like a bad thing. because it sounds like you're taking advantage of people. But it's really not that. It's that, like, literally all the opportunities in your life come to you through your connections with others. So, like, every job that you've ever had came from somebody you knew, or the relationships that you've had. If you are a line 4, then you likely, like, don't do well with, like, dating apps, or, like, your partner you probably met through somebody that you knew. Like, I met Nick through a mutual friend. Like, every romantic relationship I've ever been in has been with, like, I was introduced to that person by somebody I knew, or I met them like doing something that I love. So we were connected in that way. But these are people who, you know, it's fascinating because we are here to connect people. Like, first and foremost, that's what we're here to do. Ross said that if 4 lines didn't exist, like, there would be no collaboration. There would be no networking. We would basically all be doing our own individual things. And it's fascinating because on the one hand, we are very friendly and charismatic and, like, very gifted at forming close friendships and relationships. But on the other hand, because we pour so much into people, we only have the energy for the people who are our people. We only have the energy for, like, the people who are in our group. Because we are very prone to, like, mental exhaustion, because we're always kind of thinking of, like, how could I better serve that person? Or, like, how could I more deeply relate to them? Or, you know, how could I better serve, you know, whatever. So it's kind of funny because we, on the one hand, like, we're very friendly, but we also do have this opportunist side to us where we're like, okay, if I'm not giving, if I don't have anything to give this person and I don't have anything to receive from this person, then they're just kind of like, meh.
What's the point?
Yeah, it's kind of like, what's the point? But because this is, again, very a fixed foundational line, and because it's like we're building a foundation. Remember, for the 3 lines, like, bonds made and broken is, like, part of what they're here to do. They're here to bump into a lot of different things. For a 4 line, we're here to have a foundation of our people. So for us, breaking off connections is extremely hard. Even if we know those people aren't good for us anymore, it can be really, really challenging. And that's why, myself included, in most 4 lines that I know, like, we deal with grief at a level that, like, other people just don't even understand. And, like, I myself have had to do literally grief, like, meditations over the thought of losing my mom, or because my mom, don't have to even get into it.
It's tough.
But, like, and it's not even like my mom's dying or anything. It's just that, like, I had this fear for a long time that, like, oh, if we ever disagreed about something, or, like, if I ever did something, that she's going to disown me and whatever. So for us, like, we're not as naturally, like, changeable as the 3 lines. So, like, learning how to, like, move through that is really, it's really hard, especially, and I could probably talk for 3 hours just about the 4-6 profile, because we're also are just like, it's such, we're kind of like aliens in our own way, because we, on the one hand, we have a personal karma, which I haven't even talked about. So we, like, are here to learn our own life lessons and to make sure that our needs are met. Our needs are met before we can serve the needs of others, because we're here to carry a personal healing journey karma. Like, we're here to heal ourselves first. But on the other hand, we have these 2 transpersonal lines that are, like, always drawing us out to, like, connect with people and then to teach people. But then we have the 6 line that's really kind of like a 3 line in the first part of our life. So, like, it's like such a trip, because especially if you're 4-6 and if you're around 30 years old, then my heart goes out to you, because I'm in the same place right now where we are, on the one hand, very called to serving others and being very connected, but on the other hand, we're also being called to like evaluate all of our relationships and let go of ones that don't serve us anymore and to cut ties, and it's like especially hard for us. So yeah, little side note. Yeah, and so for 4 lines, like everything, like I said, everything comes to you from who you know. Your network is your net worth. And
But not
then
necessarily. Anyways, I
no,
think
it really is. So
well,
go for it.
I feel like it's really important specifically for this line to understand air, because air connects everything, and that's what the 4 line is. It's a connector, but at the same time, the 4 line struggles with thinking that if you have you like in your body, you have a limited body. So if you have a 4 line, you're in this position where you can't cut people off because you feel like you're cutting off their air. But first you have to be protective of your own air, because if you aren't,
I
you
love
aren't
that.
going to be able to breathe. So you have to first understand that you have a fixed amount of air each day. And if some people are taking your air and giving you carbon dioxide back, you gotta just cut them off. And it's really hard to do it because it feels like you're cutting off their air, which is not necessarily true. But you're just protecting your own energy.
I love that. Yeah, we more than any other profile line, like we need discernment over who is in our group or our like tribe. And like I have come to terms with this in this way. Like I think of it like I am here to provide like the greatest amount of value that I can for the very specific people who I know that I'm going to benefit the most.
Or that are meant to hear
that
it.
are meant to hear it.
Not necessarily everyone.
Right. I'm not here to impact everyone. I'm here to impact like a very specific group of people. So if I'm trying to give my energy to people who are not the people who are here to receive help from me, then I'm doing a disservice to the people who actually do need my help. So that's
why this works well for you.
Yeah.
Like even Zoom works well for you, because for me, I make videos because I'm impacting everybody as a 3-5.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that when we get
And
to fives.
we're getting there? Okay.
No, I love that.
So
And
then
yeah,
your line works better in this situation, because then people are interested in that specific arena.
yeah,
That makes sense.
yeah. And so I'm just seeing if there's anything else that I wanted to say.
I think you nailed that one.
But yeah, it does. We don't have the energy for everybody because we pour into our people so deeply, and
Mm-hmm. And into what you do so deeply as
yes,
well.
and we're not designed to like. We're not as easily equipped to just like jump into the void. We need a 3-step plan. We need our 3 lines to like tell us it's gonna be okay.
Because we're used to jumping in the void.
You're
Because
like jump in with me. Like so
That's
now
right.
There's this meme where it's like
oh boy.
it's like like a 3 line trying to get a 4 line to try something new, and it's like this
Just dragging
this
them along.
dog that's like really cute, like overweight dog, and like the owner's like picking him up by his harness and trying to drag him, and that's like literally us sometimes. Of like sometimes I just need time to grieve. And it's not even over the loss of a person. It's like over the loss of an opportunity
Or situation.
or a situation.
Yeah.
Like when we didn't get the motorhome. When we didn't get the motorhome, and like I just needed to cry for a day, and then I was really excited about getting a rooftop tent.
But I was just like,
But he was
Let's
hype.
go!
He was hype
boom,
the whole time.
we're going.
Because he was like, change, yeah, evolve, alchemize, I got it. And I'm just like,
Instant clarity.
I just like, and this is where you can see how it all gets a little bit, there's so many different elements at play. Because me having splenic authority, like I knew in the moment that this was the right call. I knew in the moment that getting a rooftop tent was the right thing. I could feel that. But I also felt that I had the emotion of grief that I had to move through.
Right.
So, and
Which
that's
is
my
healthy.
4 line.
Yeah.
So this is where you can see it's like so many elements come into play.
Yeah. But when you understand a little bit of it.
Okay, yeah. So 4 lines, we're the glue that holds humanity together.
Yeah, so
I love you, other 4 lines.
we didn't say take notes this time, but I feel like if you don't got notes, I'm pointing my fingers at you. Take notes.
You with
because
the hands. You with the
you
hands.
just gotta make your notes, because the thing is, it's gonna feel really good when you're listening to this, but then in a week you're gonna forget. So I think it's important to, even people close to you, to write down some things about them. So that way, if they're out of alignment, you can be like, look at this. You know? Because a lot of times, I know you know this, that a lot of times people will not listen to you because you're so close to them. So if I tell them that they're doing something wrong, they don't want to hear it from me. But if they hear it from somebody on top of a hill that's like, hey, you're doing something wrong, they're like, okay, I got it. So that's what this does. You know, I think that's what human design does in a sense, is it tells you in that way.
Literally, as I was prepping for this workshop today, I was like reading stuff and I'm like, oh, like this is why Nick did that thing the other day. Or like, oh, like now I understand.
Okay. That's what I'm saying.
Like even me like studying this on like a daily basis, I still sometimes
There's still more.
need
There's
to
always
be
going to be more.
reminded. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a 1-3, so yeah, of course I'm taking notes. Yeah, exactly. We don't even have to tell them one lines; they're just doing it.
They're
Yep.
like, okay, just a little bit here, a little bit there.
Yeah, and
That's good though.
And you guys will also have access to this PowerPoint too.
You can go back if you haven't taken notes.
Yeah.
And it should be really good, crispy quality, of course. You might even catch the the rant when it goes off. You see me doing Libra things up here? I'm like, yeah, got this here? Yeah. All right?
So-
You're going to do things? Anyways, sorry.
Nick is a Libra rising and Libra North node, and he's very like, I think of the rising signs are very similar to like the profile types because they're like your archetype or who you're here to be. And so like, I think of Nick as the Libra archetype. He's like the artist, and he's here to make sure things are aesthetically pleasing and beautiful, and to see the beauty in life and to see the love and everything. And whenever he's like really into how something looks, it's like always the joke that it's like, oh, that's like your Libra coming out.
Fixing my hair.
So he's
fixing
always
this,
like, it's just my Libra.
this here, and we're good. But, you know, it's important too that, I mean, we haven't talked about astrology in this whole course, to know that there is truth in everything, you know? So you can study astrology, you can even know your astrology and still interpret that and still know this. Like it's not one or the other. This is just a different way of interpreting the neutral reality, the world that we're all in. Even though we have 7 billion different perspectives of how that world is, we can still incorporate different aspects.
Yeah. Ash asked what your birthday is. Do you want to reveal how?
That's I'm
How old
July
you are?
9th, 1996. So
It's my younger man.
that's right. But anyways, yeah, I think that's just important too to understand.
Yeah.
So, anyways, so line 5, heretic.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Heretic,
we're moving
another...
past. We're moving past.
Okay.
We're the elements. You see, where we went fire. You know, we went fire, water, earth, air, and now we're going into sound,
No,
into the
earth,
top.
water.
I didn't
fire,
say them in order. I know. But
Just
what I'm saying.
manifesting generator things. I have this joke about generators versus mangens. Like generators really like to go from A to B to C, and manifesting generators that need to go from like A to the number 7 to the color yellow.
That's right.
Like there's no order to the madness.
But this
But it's
one's
so fun.
this one's important because this is what allows things to be manifested into reality. I mean, just even in the throat chakra in general.
Yeah. Okay, so the 5th line, the heretic. So again, the 4th line marked the time in our evolution when we started connecting with other people. We started forming tribes and groups and people to collaborate with. And the...
What?
I have no idea. One thing I forgot to say about the 4 line too is that like the 1 line, or the 3 line like connects, they create things by experimenting with things with their hands themselves. 4 lines are all about like creating things within groups. So creation taking form when you combine people. And so the 5th line is another very interesting step in our evolution where I think of it like, okay, the 4 lines came along and they made different groups and different tribes. Then the 5th lines came along and they, just like with the 5th chakra, the 5th chakra is all about how can I uniquely express something? How can I, like what am I here to uniquely, it's less about, because the 4th chakra is all about connection and like just raw, how do I connect with the other person? The fifth chakra is about resonance. It's not only do I connect with that person, but do I resonate with them? Because the fifth chakra is about resonance and sound and communication.
Yeah, how do you make a
voice,
difference?
Energy. How do you make a difference? Exactly. So the fifth lines were that step in our evolution where they were the people who discovered something new, discovered something unique, came up with a unique solution or a unique message, and they were like, you know what, this is so important that I can't just stay in my same little small town all my life. I need to get out and I need to share this. I'm going to travel far and wide, and I'm going to make sure my message gets out there to the masses. So the brave ones who left the tribe to travel to the other tribe, and so that they could share something. Now, the reason why they're called the heretic is because, again, they're coming here with something new. So when they arrive to those people, they seem very different, very eccentric, like something that they've never seen before. And commonly what is talked about when you talk about the heretic is that they're often projected upon. And the reason they're projected upon is because here you have this other tribe that was just, you know, they were just a sleepy little small town. They had no idea that they even had, you know, that they maybe knew that they had certain problems, but they were kind of set in their ways and they didn't know that there was any solutions. So along comes the heretic who's like, here I have this new energy to bring and I have these new solutions. And so they step into a new area, and all these people now suddenly project onto the fifth line that, hey, you're new, you're brand new, fresh energy. You must be my savior. You must be the one who's here to solve all of my problems. And the fifth line's like, whoa, that is like not what I came here to do. Like, I just came here to tell you this message that I have. And they're like, but, but you must be the one, because why else would you be here? So that is why they're called the heretic, is because they have this they just have this like unique thing about them that not everybody is going to understand or see. So that's like another thing that fifth lines often have to wrestle with, is like feeling like they're not totally seen for who they are, because they're always being told, they're always being projected upon and like told who they are by other people.
Mm-hmm. And you'll find yourself getting censored, like me.
Yep.
Where if you're bringing up new perspectives, more than likely there's going to be people that don't agree.
Yep.
So being able to stand, that's important with the fifth line too, being able to stand in whatever your truth is. Because if you're not strong enough in it, then you're just going to conform to other people's truths, and then you won't ever feel in alignment with who you are.
And that's exactly how you kind of combat projections as a fifth line, is being really solid in what it is you're here to do, what it is you're good at, what unique message you're here to give. Because the more you're solid, the more that you're solid in who you are, the less people will be able to project onto you, because you'll be able to shut it down. You'll be like, no, I'm sorry, that's not what I'm here to do, but this is what I'm here to do. Mm-hmm. And people aren't going to be able to dispute that when you're so solid in yourself. So these are people who are full of like out of the box solutions. So these are people who like, they want to connect with others, because again, they're a transpersonal line, but they want to connect with others for the sake of fixing and solving a problem. Like, I often say that like the four lines form a network and the message comes later, or what they're here to teach is almost the excuse to connect with people. But five lines are the opposite. Five lines are the messengers, and they have a message and they have a unique voice, and forming the network around them is like the side effect of them having a message.
So true.
They're not really focused on connecting with people just for the sake of connection. They're here to like do their own thing and share their own thing, and if they resonate with people, then great, but if they don't, they don't. So they're more, and they're very, very pragmatic. They're like, what is the one thing or the few things that are going to help the most amount of people? They're all about like, how can I simplify this and make this so pragmatic and efficient that I can maximize how many people I help? Because they're all about, they're really the helpers and the fixers, and they want to like help and fix the most people out of anybody. They're going to have, out of any other profile line, they're going to have the widest reach, potential for like the most success. And like in a career in one field, like they're the most likely to like be the leader or like the CEO or even like a celebrity of some sort. Like they're here to be on like a very public stage, so to speak.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that they'll always be have the biggest impact on people. Because you can have people like what you're doing here, you're going to have a huge impact on a specific people, rather than like the 5 line might have a impact, but not
Yes.
as much of an impact.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So it's like a 5 line doesn't go as deep as a 4 line or
Yeah.
a 1 line. They're more about what is the most pragmatic thing that I can do to help the most amount of people. And the thing about the 5 line, so again, we talked about how 4 lines are very friendly, but we're friendly in that like we're good at forming relationships, but we're also really only designed to like talk to people who are our people. And we're designed to only like connect with people who we feel like we can have deep connections with. Whereas a 5 line is a lot less personal than that. They're very transpersonal, meaning that I often joke that the 5th lines can like talk to an Uber driver the same way they can talk to their best friend. Like they don't really change the way they talk to people depending on who it is. They kind of just talk to everybody the same. They kind of just treat everybody the same. So they have this naturally like almost like relatability, kind of like the 3 line. They kind of have this like relatability to people. They can talk to anybody.
Yep.
The challenge to stand in your truth regardless of opinions to find alignment. I relate. Yeah, totally big
That's
thing
huge.
for 5s. This resonates. I'm a 5-1 and awakened last year after doing extensive research and just knew this had to be true, and I've been trying to wake everybody up. I've grown a lot since then, but so true. Yeah, 5-1s especially are a very unique blend because it's like another quality about the 5 is that you tend to just show up in situations at the right place at the right time to like be the hero or be the savior. And for like so like a 5-2 or a 2-5 or even a 3-5, like sometimes that's kind of like jarring. Like having to almost to solve problems can feel kind of it can feel mentally overwhelming sometimes. But for a 5-1, not so much, because the 5-1 has the 1 line that just loves diving deep into the information. So it's like they almost love to solve problems and to solve puzzles for the pure enjoyment of just like diving into it. And so yeah, 5-1's really a cool profile for that, of like especially like I know a lot of people who are into awakening and waking people up. Wind is a 5-1. A lot who are 5-1s. Okay. Woo! Voice is starting to get tired, but we're doing good.
You're good. You got this. Also know about awakening others. A huge lesson. This is just a side note. I'm going to make it really quick, but a huge lesson I've learned in my life about awakening people is to know that the game that we're in, the experience that we're having, is not about awakening everyone. It's about awakening those that want to awaken or that have the potential to, because what kind of game would it be if everybody awakened at the same time? So I spent so much time earlier in my life trying to awaken everyone, but knowing that there's only a certain amount of people that are on that point in their journey, and that they have an infinite amount of time, and everyone, as you always say, everyone will be enlightened eventually anyways.
Yep.
So speaking, not just to speak, but speaking with a purpose to those that want to hear it, it's huge. You'll save
Yeah.
yourself a lot of time.
And that's why
know?
there's so many, that's why we're all so unique, and why it's, like studying human design, it helps bring awareness to the fact that we are all different. It's a science of differentiation. And to me, it brings a lot of hope that like, whatever I'm here to share, whatever voice I'm here to have, will help enlighten this very specific type of people that I'm here to enlighten. And then like the way that I explain things can be different than the way Nick explains things, and the message that he has and the people that he appeals to, which is going to be different from the way that Ash explains things and the people she appeals to, and Wind, and so on and so forth. So
Yeah.
to me, it like just highlights that there's no competition, because we're all like appealing to the people that we need to appeal to. And also like we all need to be stepping into our power, because no matter no matter how little you feel like you have to share, like you're always going to, you'll never know exactly what impact you're going to have, or like how maybe the way that you shared it is going to really resonate with somebody that never really hit them when they heard anybody else say it. So that was a really kind of random tangent, but that was good and important, I think.
Yeah, to know that there's always going to be people that are at the level that you're at. So if you're not sharing anything right now, knowing that there's going to be people that will receive it better from you than somebody who's been sharing for a while, because you're more relatable to them. So just because you don't have a lot of followers, or just because you don't have whatever you're looking for that you might need to have, that doesn't mean that you can't change lives now.
So true.
You know?
Yeah, so true. And so actually this is really relevant because the fifth line is very connected to the fifth chakra, and that's like all about what the fifth chakra is about, is like making sure your unique voice is heard. And tying this back into the fifth chakra, this develops in us between the ages of 7 and 12. And this is when kids become really focused on like creativity and, you know, arts and crafts, and they become expressive and have their own voice. And before I even knew about chakras, I used to joke that like, oh, like kids between the ages of 7 and 12 are just like so difficult to work with. The reason that I would say that is because like younger kids were either like so enthusiastic to just like play with anyone, heart chakra phase 4 to 7, super enthusiastic to just play with anyone, or in the younger phases, even if they're maybe the solar plexus phase and they're really willful about what they want, and kind of like easy to like almost trick them into doing what you want them to do. And then teenagers, I just kind of talk to teenagers like they're adults. But kids between the ages of 7 to 12, like if they don't want to do something, they're very vocal about it. And so that was always really hard for me working with kids in this age. But it is a very beautiful age of like learning what makes you unique. Because again, like this is all about, this is like less about co-creating. Like in the fourth line, it was about like, how can I connect with people so I can co-create? The fifth line is a lot more about, what is my unique voice? They're not really here to co-create. They're here to be the star of the show. Here to just like share. And so if I could rename the fifth line from the heretic, I would call them the messenger. Because they're really like every messenger, or like maybe the fixer even. I think that's what Richard Rudd calls them.
And read the comments. Getting all the way in there. Hello?
Yeah. Yeah, people giving you props, Nick. So true, Nick. Definitely something I had to learn.
I feel that, man.
I'm a 5'2", and I randomly fell into working for a college, and my favorite part of the job is mentoring and coaching freshman students. I feel very called to coaching and teaching others, but I often find myself afraid to jump into coaching in areas that I'm not overly qualified in the past experiences. Seems like that comes from my line 2. Yes, exactly. So I call the 5'2s oftentimes like the self-motivated heroes, because you're very conscious of your line 5 that wants to jump out and help people, but then you have this unconscious part of you, this body part of you that's almost like whispering on your shoulder, like, oh, are you really sure that you want to do that? Are you really sure you're qualified? You know, the like line 2 part of you is like, kind of be nice to just kind of hermit out for a little bit. But the really beautiful thing about the 2-5 and the 5-2 is that they are very harmonious with each other. And because they're like, the line 2 is always projecting out into the world and the line 5 is being projected upon, they have this very natural, these profiles have very natural like give and take with the world of like, they typically find a good balance in their life of like giving and receiving from others, or like finding time to be social and then finding time to be alone. So yeah, I think a lot of that just comes with like being unapologetic with needing some alone time to connect with your own natural gifts and things like that, so that you have the energy to help others.
We going to 6 now?
Yeah, and 5-2s also have like, I feel like an inner calling.
5-2s do?
Yeah.
In specific?
Yeah.
You don't think the other ones do?
Well, like especially like, they have this inner calling of like,
The hermit.
Almost like inner superhero calling, like responding to the call.
Mm.
No, I actually wasn't done with the fifth line. Sorry.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, so common like shadow I see fifth lines like have to overcome is like either the shadow of like pride of like, and I mean pride in the sense of like them not wanting to admit when they can't help with something, because again people are like expecting them to be able to help, and so a lot of times fifth lines will like out of like good intentions but still from like a place of pride they'll be like, oh yeah, sure, I can help with that, and then like when they can't help with that thing or they can't do that thing, it can be very devastating for the fifth line. So like kind of owning those areas of you and becoming very crystal clear about what you can do and what you can't do. I've also seen a lot of fear with five lines, like especially 5-1s, because they're like, oh, like what if I don't know what to do, or what if I don't know how to help this person? So a lot of that just like comes into, again, it goes back to trusting yourself, and also like Nick was saying, like having crystal clear communication. And again, tying it back to the chakras, a lot of times with the profiles I'll see that like one line that person will be really strong in, and then the other one the other person might be a little bit deficient in. So like Nick has a really, really strong throat chakra energy. Like he has no problem speaking his truth, like totally in the moment. And but like sometimes with fives I'll see that like that may be something that they struggle with a little bit, and that they have to work on.
And just know that as a 5 line, if you don't know, it's very important to realize that you probably a lot of the times might not know a lot about a specific thing. So you might say to somebody, hey, this is how it is with this, and you're the messenger, but then you don't know the specific details. So it's very important to know that with the 5, you got to know who does know the details as well, because then you can point those people towards the people
Yes.
that are like the 1 lines that actually do know the details.
Mm-hmm.
So that way you're not talking out of your...
Or even if you're even if you're a 5-1, you can recognize that like I know a lot of details about my specific niche of things,
Right.
but I don't know it about these things, so I'm going to point you to the right people.
Yeah, or
That's
even to the 2
huge.
lines. Yeah.
That's huge. Yeah, but like I've just found that like 5 lines, it's you just tend to be able to drop them into emergency situations. Sometimes they just like know what to do a lot of the time.
Well, they can figure it out.
Fascinating. Yeah. It's your uniqueness. All right, and the 6th line. Okay, so this is,
We're up to the 3rd eye.
we're up to the 3rd eye. So now we
Or in light.
we're in the illumination phase.
That's right.
So the 5th line is really about like, how do I fix things? Like, how do I solve these problems? The 6th line though is like, it's not any more concerned with fixing things, because it's like, oh, the 5th line, you know, fixed it, patched it up, it helped the people. Now the 6th line is all about, how can we carry this forward? How can we make this even better? How can we evolve this beyond anything that we've ever done in the past? And how can we do this in such a way that we can embody our specific archetype and our objective truths, our subjective and objective truths? Because the 6th line is all about being the role model, being the embodiment, but also helping others become their own authority, becoming their own inner authority. Especially if you have the 6th line like in the first half of your profile. So if you're a 6-2 or 6-3, then you're really here to be a teacher, and likely like you probably resonated with like certain aspects of all the lines, because there is a sense with the line 6 of like kind of having to work themselves from the ground up and experience things at every level in order to get themselves at a place where they can kind of vibrate this authority to people that like, okay, so I've gone through this entire life experience, I've gathered subjective truth and objective truth, and now I am ready to basically embody what it means to be a role model. And this is a lot less about telling people what to do or like delivering a message, because again, that's a 5 line. The 6th line is about just being it.
They are the light.
like this, yes, exactly. And this is like such a trip. And I remember having a conversation with Matt about this, because he's a 6'2", because he was like, how do I tell people that this is what it is? And I'm like, Matt, you don't have to tell people, like, just be it. Just share your experience of like how you went through that. Because I think what it was is that he's like, how do I help people see that they're in pride? Or like, how do I help people see that they're in desire? And I'm like, you don't have to tell people that they're in desire. You just speak from your own experience of, when I was in desire, this is what it looked like, and this is how I got myself out of it. And then people will naturally be like, oh, he radiates such a natural authority and exuberance about him, and I want to be like him, so I'm going to follow him because he's in his truth. So 6th line is all about you figuring out your own truth and you focusing your energy on being the best and highest example of what it means to you to be in this human experience. And I think that this is very analogous to the third eye chakra, because the third eye chakra really develops in adolescence when like teenagers are very obsessed with like their identity, but more so like their archetypal identity, right? Because in the third chakra, we develop our identity based on what we do, like our actions, and like learning that things have cause and effect, and learning to define ourselves based on like how good of an achievement that we did, or like how good we did. But like the 6th chakra is like, what is like the archetype that I can embody that's going to help me fulfill my higher purpose? And like the third eye chakra really sees like patterns and discernment. So like the 4th and the 5th lines, again, they both have that connection with people. And the 4th line is like really, the 4th line in the 4th chakra is all about connection. The 6th line is like, it's like, what type of people can I interact with that'll really help me get my specific teachings across? Or like, what, again, like what archetype can I embody that's going to help the people that I see are most in alignment with my truth, in a sense.
Yeah.
And so 6 lines always go through 3 very distinct life phases. And so if you are a 6 line and you are in your first 30 years of life, or you have not yet gone through your Saturn return, then you are actually living as a 3 line. So this is kind of a trip, because again, if you're a 4-6, for example, then this means that you're actually, up until you're 30 years old, you're kind of living as a 4-3. And the reason why it's like that is because the 6 line, again, being all about illumination, bringing things to light, developing truth, it goes through its own subjective experiences in the first 30 years of life. So it goes through this phase of trial and error and learning for itself and experimentation. And then what happens is around the Saturn return, or around age 30, all of us 6 lines, we kind of go through this phase where, and I'm in it right now, especially if you're a 4-6 or a 6-2, because you don't have a 3 line in your profile, because the 3 lines have this natural resilience to them that the 6 line doesn't carry by itself. So the 6 line, yes, is operating like a 3, but they don't have the natural resilience that a line 3 has. So the 6 line will have all this experimentation, and then especially close to their Saturn return, they'll be like, why doesn't everything work out for me? Like, they'll get bitter, they'll get frustrated, they'll get angry or whatever. And so what happens is the line 6 will kind of withdraw around age 30 and kind of go into the second phase of life, which is all about healing, reflection, introspection, but also Ra called this phase going to the roof. So you go to the roof of the house in order to observe what other people are doing. So again, first 30 years of life, you gained your subjective experience. Second phase of life, between the ages of 30 and 50, you gain objective experience through observing other people. So you've kind of developed your subjective truth. Now you kind of observe the objective truth by, you kind of take a little bit of a break from engaging with life. Not totally. That doesn't mean that you stop doing the things you're passionate about, or you stop working in your career, or whatever, but it means that you kind of have a slightly withdrawn way that you're now engaging with life, and you're kind of you're letting other people play a lot more. You're just kind of observing, and through this, it allows you to heal from all the craziness that happened in your first 30 years of life. Like for me, as a sixth line, in my first 30 years, like I got married, I got divorced, I had like 4 different physical therapy jobs. I had a lot of trial and error with lots of different friend groups, never really feeling like I fit in. And it's like I'm coming to my Saturn return, and I'm really feeling like I'm coming to know who I am, but I'm really, really tired. And I'm like, okay, now that I kind of know what I'm here to do and who I'm here to do it with, and I know that we're going to be traveling and we have everything figured out, kind of ready to just rest and reflect in that for a while and observe other people's trial and error. And I'm still going to teach. I'm still going to, mentor people, but I'm not going to be as engaged with like trying all these different things, because I already did that. And then, the second phase of life is a lot about integration, like family building, because like all 6 lines are most 6 lines are really obsessed with finding a soulmate. So this other thing that happens is a lot of times 6 lines will like find a soulmate around their Saturn return. Fascinating. And then, and so then it's like really about that second phase is all about kind of coming into your own, so that around the time of your Chiron return, which is about age 50, you kind of emerge into the world as this like fully fledged embodied role model of like, I've observed the world, I've also played in the world, and now I really know who I am and what I'm here to embody, and people will naturally follow me because when I'm living in truth with myself, that is so alluring to other people. They'll want to be like that, but I don't have to try to be that. I just be who I am. However, what I will say is that if you're a 6th line, no matter where you are in your phase of life, there's kind of this really funny thing that happens where people will always be perceiving you as a role model or an authority, even when you don't perceive yourself as a role model or an authority, especially if you have the 6th line as like your second line, if you're a 3-6 or a 4-6. This is something that has been fascinating to me my whole entire life. I've always been told that I'm a role model, or that I'm a teacher, or that I'm wise, and like I don't see that in myself. Or like another really fascinating thing that happens is like I can be out hiking, and like without fail, almost every time I'm out hiking, I'll get asked for directions. It's like something in my aura radiates that like I know what I'm doing, or that I know what I'm talking about, or that I'm a role model. And I'm like, why are you asking me? I'm just like trying to be in my own space. It's a really fascinating thing. Because 6 lines are like kind of late bloomers in a way, we have one thing that we struggle with a lot is the theme of desire, or the feeling that we've never arrived, or the feeling of like happiness is just like this next milestone away. And so for me, I've had to really work on cultivating like that I am perfectly in the right place at the right time, and that there's really no such thing as being arrived, and that this whole human experience is about the journey, and understanding that like there's always going to be more to learn. There's always going to be more to grow from, but that it's all a beautiful part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is, a common thing I see.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take a voice break for a second.
Take a voice break, okay. Are we done with the 6th line?
I think there's a couple other things I wanted to say, but I'm curious, like, do you see any of, like, anything that I just talked about, do you see that in me? Because, like, this is, like, I don't see myself.
Put me on the spot. You're Chief. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I see, first of all, you definitely don't see you have that weird thing going where you don't see yourself as this.
Yeah.
But you got to understand that she spends, like, every day on learning, and that could be inner standing or outer standing, however you want to put it. But when you're in this, like in all of this, right, this is what she does. So it's interesting to me how you don't consider yourself a leader, but this is what you do every day.
Yeah, it's
You know?
It's a trip. It's such a trip.
So that in particular, and I didn't know the Saturn return stuff, but aren't you on your Saturn return right now?
Yep.
Okay, well then that makes a lot of sense. So, but specifically, I think that's the biggest thing that
Yeah.
I've seen for you. So with the 6 line, I don't know why, but the elements for this whole thing is just my
Yeah,
thing.
get it, babe.
I
'cause,
just like the elements because with the 6 line, like if you think about the elements, the first 4 are all earth, right? And then you step into the 5th, which is sound, which is you're going into ether almost, into the invisible, which is not really invisible, but it's invisible to our perception. But we can still hear it, obviously. But then you get into this, which is the light. So the light, if we don't have like duality, first of all, the light wouldn't know that it was light. So I think that's really what it is. It's like the 6 line doesn't know that it's the light because without somebody there to tell them that they're the light, they don't know that they're light. They're just being the light.
Yeah.
So that's what the 6 line is kind of doing. And so overall, I think it's really, really important to see the 6s as the light, even though they don't see themselves as the light. So
Yeah, it's fascinating. Like every 6 line I know, especially like 4 6s, they like don't necessarily see them as a light, but they most often will see themselves as a teacher or like know that they're here to teach something. But they'll get tripped up because there's like this imposter syndrome thing that happens with the 6 line of like, I surely can't be the role model to lead these people, but I also know that I want to teach, so I guess I just got to start somewhere and see how it goes.
yeah.
Because it's like we're definitely drawn to being teachers, and we're very like big picture oriented people, like seeing the forest from the trees. Like the one lines like really get into the details of things. Like the 6 lines is just like, how can I help like this very specific group of people that fit into like my archetype? Like how can I embody to them like the best way how can I be the best embodiment for them that I can be? And the more, as a 6 line, the more that you can just like share from your experience and your observations, rather than trying to get tripped up on like the wording of like, how do I just like tell people? How do I convince people? How do I get them to just like do it? Like the more that you can just like focus on you, the better, because that's the real paradox of the 6 line is like, it's again a transpersonal line. It's all about getting information out there, but it's not about telling people what to do at all. It's like, just be you, just be you and share it and teach it.
It's like the first 3 lines are about like the first 3 chakras, where it's about your personal journey, and then you get into the 4th and 5th, and you're kind of like going from personal to outer social, and then with the 6th, it's the embodiment of it all.
Exactly.
You hear me?
Yes.
I have to yell.
Hey.
I don't know why
Hey.
that doesn't work.
Go ahead.
Is it good?
Yes.
Yeah, you're
Okay.
good.
I found this really interesting and reflection on Matt and I both having the 6 line
Yep.
and the school, right? Like pop quiz. What do we always tell you guys about being a teacher?
Just
Like
be
what's the
it.
number one thing we tell you all about teaching?
Have your own practice.
About practicing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, teach from your
Yes.
experience. And that's so funny because
Where's
we're
your phone?
both line 6, and that's like all we say over and over
hiding
again
it
is
from the
like, we're
screen.
here, show you this, and then we're just like, but ultimately you need to teach from your own experience. And now I'm like,
Yeah, better
oh, maybe
signal.
that's just because we're line 6, so for us that's the way we see it. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I love that. And like, I also think it's like really funny too, because you both have like gone through a lot of your own trial and error, and like especially Matt being a conscious line 6, like he often talks about how he like went through every level of consciousness in order to be able to teach it. And it's like, yeah, like 6 lines, we can't just like know it. We gotta like try it and do it and fail at it and observe it and then like come full circle and embody it.
So
Such a
what
treat.
I've been learning now from this amazing workshop, thank you, Jesse and Nick, is
Hey.
like don't freaking listen to me when I say anything because you all have your own way. So this is so important. Like if you're a line 1, you need to research everything. And like from the research, you're going to feel that confidence and it's going to come differently, you know? And if you're line 3, you're going to be like experimenting and like that's your way. And so, you know, it's like I just love it. I love just the
see you going.
realization that, specifically speaking from the teacher training of, you know, I know not everybody in here is the teacher training. Maybe you will be, but you're probably gonna end up teaching this in some way if you're in this workshop, right? People that are in here want to share human design in some form. So coming to the realization that we're all in this unique path of stepping into that seat of a teacher, and now hopefully you're more clear on what works best for you in developing your confidence to shine your light in the world, because not one way is right or better. They're all so awesome and we need every single one of them. I mean, I think that you guys really explained so many examples of how we go to different people for different things because that is what they are good at, and we appreciate that about them because it doesn't come as natural to us. So I just love, you know, this invitation to deeply explore your profile, your energy type, and all of these things. And how can, I guess my closing statement for this specific one is like, I would love for you all to think about how does your design and your profile, now that you know it more deeply, how does that translate into teaching? What kind of teacher are you, and what kind of facilitator are you? Inner work facilitator, yoga teacher, human design reader, based on your unique profile and energy type, because it's so awesome. Okay, that's it.
I'm like jumping up and down.
I wanted to hit on what Ash just said, that this actually helps us to understand who we are. And, you know, like I have almost seen everyone's chart now that I know of because I want to know what their chart looks like. But so I now know that, okay, if I need a pick me up or someone who can tell me it's okay, I go to my friend who is a 3-5 because I know she will do that for me. And I don't guilt myself into feeling that why am I not able to do what she's able to do, because now I understand that we're two different individuals and it's all about our energy and our lines and our profile, and it's so amazing. I love it.
Brilliant.
I'm jumping
Does
up and down.
anybody know Lilia? Sana, did you do Lilia's reading, or Jesse? I mean, Jesse, did you do Lilia?
Yes.
What's her profile?
She's a 6'2", I think. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, I was just thinking because she just asked me this question in email. Now I'm going to answer based on her profile because she said, should I go back to school to study yoga philosophy and get my degree in Eastern, in religion and philosophy? And in my head, I was like, no, you don't need to do that because you can just do it from experience. Why don't you go do an immersion in the Tantra lineage? You don't need to go get a degree. But then I was just thinking, wait a second. What if she's a different profile where like that is good for her? She needs to go and like absorb all the information. I don't know now. I'm thinking my advice does not work for every profile. I'm like, just go into it. Like just immerse yourself in it. And
You're
like that's
also,
not
well, don't forget that you're a
correct, but
reflector. And that you're like you
Yeah.
automatically like reflected back to her what she needed, even without knowing her profile, which is also very fascinating to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love all of this. I'm so lit up right now and so energized by this.
I feel it.
I was so, I mean, it's so cute. Like Matt and Ash do this a lot where like, Matt will like laugh because Ash will be like so tired before their workshop starts, and then she'll get in it and she'll be like so energized, and like that's how I feel right now.
You're like this.
I'm feeling all you guys through all my open centers right now. I'm so lit up by this because this is exactly why I do this. Like, this is exactly why I do what I do, because like when we understand each other, then we know, first of all, we understand like how amazing we are, because we understand that like we all need all the pieces to the puzzle, but then we also know exactly how to give other people what they need to. And so I love that this is all like landing and resonating with you guys in that way.
Oh,
Yeah,
and one
super
other
grateful.
thing is like, you know, a lot of you, I think, either already are or have an ambition of working with people one-on-one in some sense of coaching, personal development, inner work, human design, obviously. This is such a great tool when you're working with people one-on-one. Like I think now it's like at that point where now you know the energy types, you know the profiles,
Yeah.
you know the authority, and that's like the main thing that you really need to know if you're going to be addressing somebody individually and helping them on that level. I feel like this is that point where you're like, I know, okay, I get it, and I could speak to them individually with just this much. You don't even need to know more than that, I feel like, to apply everything else, and then just take into consideration this information of pulling their chart. And I think we've said this before, but you know, Matt has a pretty much full-time counseling practice, and human design is a part of it. He always is like, can you send me your birth information?
Yeah.
Because that's important to when he's talking to them, to at least know that and take it into consideration. So I hope that you're all thinking about that as far as your personal offerings of, yeah, you can incorporate this in and have a little bit of an edge on your success in seeing results. Because
Yes.
this clearly, like, we're all resonating. We're all like, yeah, this is me. Like, imagine if you went to a healer or a coach or somebody for advice and they were able to utilize this in combination with all the other stuff, inner work.
Sometimes people heal just by fixing their not self.
Oh yeah, Matt's saying sometimes this information alone just does it, and he doesn't really need to do anything for them because they're like, oh, okay, that's helpful. Like, I was just living in my not self. Good to know. Anyways.
Right, yeah, because I can't remember who said it, but I think when you guys are talking about third eye chakra, you said something to the effect of like, consciousness needs to be, like, it needs to be made aware of itself, or it needs to like be made aware of its patterns or something. Now I'm like totally butchering what you said, but I think of that like with human design, it's like it goes back to like nature versus nurture, right? So it's like a lot of times the themes of consciousness, it gets at maybe our nurture, like what's been conditioned into us or what patterns we have. But then when we look at our human design, it's kind of like the nature of, oh, that's why I am the way that I am. And like, that's like literally imprinted on my DNA that I am more susceptible to these patterns. But the reason why I'm more susceptible to these patterns is because when I overcome them, on the other side of it's my gifts. I just think, yeah, it's so beautiful. And hopefully through using these tools, like whether you use this to work with people one-on-one or you use this to facilitate yoga classes or however you work with clients, like my hope is that you can take this information and you can see like patterns of like, oh, okay, so somebody with an undefined heart center will struggle with, might struggle with like the theme of pride and like feeling to prove themselves, or, people with the line, or people with the profile line 3 may have to work on overcoming shame because they've been shamed for like feeling like they weren't able to ever make mistakes, and feeling like something was inherently wrong with them as a kid. So like hopefully like that's my hope with this information, is that you guys can like use patterns, see the patterns of this to help people in your practices. So and look at that, it's 3:00 on the dot.
I had a question.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have time left.
No, totally, go for it.
I know you haven't hit this yet, but it was about gates. So I was going through my chart, and you said the right side and the left side, and the first number is the gate and the second is a line. So I see some that have, like my Neptune has a second line, or my Pluto has a third line. So what does that mean? Like, how does the line work in that case?
Great question. So I actually have this on a slide. So when you're looking at when you're looking at your whole chart, so your profile comes from those top two lines because those are your sun energies. So that's the biggest part of what you're here to do and express. But just like you said, Sana, there's lines like in every single gate. There you have a line there. So that's where I think I said something earlier about how Nick, not only is he a 3-5, but he also has like 13 3 lines in his whole profile, because like in his other gates he has a ton of 3 lines. So this is where, and this is kind of getting a little heady here, but like in this slide I use examples from my own chart. So just depending on what energy that gate has, like the line is basically the kind of like the flavor of that gate, or like how you learn that lesson, or trying to think. It's like if the gate is the storyline, then the line is the genre. So it's like you can have the same story plot, but just like told in a different way, or told in a different just like given, you can have the same story plot that's a musical, you can have the same story plot that's a comedy. Like it can be different. So like from just examples of my chart, like I have gate 53, which is like the ability to start, it's kind of like the pressure to start new things, but I have that in the light 1. So for me, like I might give people the pressure to start new things, but I only do that when I feel like I have a secure foundation to do so. So that may be an area where I feel like I need to research things a little bit more. Or like my gate 57 is in the line 5. So the 57 is all about like having intuitions about the future. It can also manifest as having a fear of the future when it's in its lower expression. But to me, because I have that in the line 5, it's like I'm motivated to share messages about the future and where we're headed. But I also, I feel like that's probably enough. I feel like that's probably taking it.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Like, so you're saying that if there's a certain gate with a different line, I would probably function like a line 1 in what that gate represents in my life.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And and that's
how
like,
does the...
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry.
You're good.
I'm that person.
Yikes.
Okay, so you have the first 2 numbers, like that was like 57, then point, then 1. So that's why it's line 1, gate 57, right?
You got it.
And then it's and then the planet above that, what's the planet?
So, okay.
Going back to the screen share there.
Yeah. Okay. So the planet is okay. So going back to like how the chart actually like works, or like how you're imprinted with this information, is like when you're born, depending on where the planets were at, it activates certain gates. So like this one up here is your sun, your conscious sun gate. So the little planet, that's a sun. So that's the energy that the sun was in when you were born. And then, so the sun for me was in gate 58 when I was born, and it was in the line 4. So that's where I get gate 58 is in my conscious sun, and then the 4 line in my profile. Hope that makes sense.
In the drive, is there a reference of like the general meaning of these gates, or is there a place that you can look up like what each gate means? Is that in the drive, or is there a website? Are we doing that next week or something? Am I getting ahead of myself?
I typically don't get into the gates with people right away, and I wasn't planning on it just because like it's literally such an overwhelm of information in the beginning. Like, if you can understand your clients based on their energy type, their profile type, and their authority type, then like you've already probably seen into them deeper than like
They have.
they have.
Yeah.
But for those who like I really recommend that you kind of understand those 3 elements of yourself and you experiment with them for like probably 6 months or more. And when you really understand those things, you can kind of dive into the gates, because it's like so, and maybe again, because I'm a 4/6, like that's a lot of information for me to digest all at once.
Maybe in the future you have a course, you guys have a course on something like that they could follow up with.
I think Wind already has that in the works, actually. But
Okay, yeah.
what I recommend for people who are wanting to get into the gates is like honestly, my favorite way to look at the gates is through the Gene Keys. So you can buy, hold on, is my Gene Keys book over there? Can you give me the blue one?
Which one of your 30,000 Gene books?
The blue one.
The blue one. There's like 6 blue. This one? The one I didn't pick up yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you get this book, it's like the original Gene Keys book. This is like, it's super amazing because it goes through, the Gene Keys are the same thing as the gates. So it's just a different, it's just Richard Rudd's interpretation of the gates essentially. And the reason why I love his interpretation is because he breaks it down from like your shadow frequency, which is like 3D, your gift frequency, which is like 4D, and then your city frequency, which is like 5D. So it's like, it's
incredible.
It's really amazing because human design, a lot of times, like the original language from Ra, he would explain the gates from the lower expression lens or from like the shadow aspect, and like wasn't very empowering. But when you read this, you're like, oh my gosh, it makes so much sense. And there's, I mean, it's thick. There's so much information on each one. Like each one like has, I don't know, like a 6 or 7 page description. Just way more detailed than you'd get from any like human design teachings. And then what I'd also recommend, because I know that Matt talked about in one of the workshops, he talked about incarnation cross. Okay, I personally do not like to, I don't personally like to even tell people about their incarnation crosses or like try to explain it to them, because I think it's such a personal experience of like what it means to you. But if you go on the Gene Keys website and you make a free profile, the free profile is what in the Gene Keys it's called the genius sequence or the activation sequence or something like that.
Activation.
It's it's 4 different Gene Keys, okay? If you make your free profile in Gene Keys, it's the same thing as your human design incarnation cross, because what it does is it takes your, in Gene Keys, your activation sequence is your conscious sun, your conscious and unconscious sun, and then your conscious and unconscious earth. It's basically these top 4 energies in your human design chart. So Ra called that your incarnation cross. Richard calls that your activation sequence. Okay, but the way, so basically it's like if you make a free profile in Gene Keys,
Shout out Gene Keys.
You'll know your incarnation cross much more deeply than you would if you just like Googled or searched your incarnation cross or like tried to look it up, because there's very, very little information on incarnation crosses out there unless you take like one of the human design school certification courses on it. But there's like 192 different ones, so it'd be like impossible to try to cover all of them. But if you really focus on those top 4 gates or those top 4 Gene Keys and you make a free profile in Gene Keys, best way, hands down, that I found to like start connecting with your,
So those are the planets?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get back to the, so
hopefully that makes sense.
Okay.
Sorry, we're in elementary school. I'm trying to go to college. I'm sorry, everybody. Okay. I get it. Okay. One step at a time, y'all.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah, go for it, Candy.
Okay, so on the charts, there's some arrows on the top that go left and right. And then in some of the boxes, there's like little arrows in the corner that point up or down. So I have a couple questions actually. So the first is about those 2 sets of arrows, but I'll pause there, but I have a follow-up.
Okay, so I'm gonna screen share again.
Get it.
It's an onion.
Yeah. Okay, so
I think it's so simple and it's so complex.
Candy,
It is.
are you talking about these arrows?
Yeah, so I'm like pointing at my screen. So yeah, the ones on the top that point, either left or right. And then in like on yours, the third black square down, that little guy.
Yeah.
So what are those? What is all that?
Okay, so
All right, get ready for another hour.
ready for dissertation. Okay, so I'll try to keep this brief. No promises though. So the top 4 arrows have to do with basically if you are designed to be more, how do I put this? Like more of an active participant in your life or more of like a passive participant in your life. And what I mean by that is like, for me, you can see that most of my arrows up here point to the left, which means that I focus, or I move through life with a little bit more ease when I am more focused, strategic, and disciplined. And those things, being focused, strategic, and disciplined, comes naturally to me, and it frees my mind to think about things that actually matter. Whereas Nick, all 4 of his arrows point to the right, which means that he is not here to be consistent, disciplined, focused, or strategic at all. He is designed to go with the flow and let things come to him, and the less routine, the better, and the more that he can be in an environment where he can feel like he can relax into it rather than have to plan it and be in control of his environment, the better. Because for him, he has more of what we call like a passive mind or passive brain, and he takes in information very, very deeply, but it doesn't necessarily stick the way it would with someone who has more left arrows. So for him, it's like he gets more inspiration from being in the flow of things, where somebody who has more left-facing arrows like me, I actually do better and learn better when I can focus a little bit more on details, when I can be in control of my environment, when I think about things very specifically that I want to manifest, or that if I want things the way that they are. So that's like a very quick overview of the arrows. They're kind of a controversial topic in human design because it's a part of human design that wasn't in the original transmission. So human design, Ra basically channeled the system over the course of 7 days. He did not channel this bit about the arrows. He didn't channel it during that time. He just like kind of came up with it or discovered it as he kind of like came up with the math of human design and the inner workings and the patterns. He discovered basically patterns, and that was like, and so in human design we call those the variables. And so there's like a certain people in human design who like really, really focus on the variables, and then other people who are like basically say that they have no value or no
They're irrelevant.
They're irrelevant, basically. So
Yeah.
that's a little bit on the arrows. And then as far as the little arrows next to the gates, Wind knows actually a lot more about this than I do, but supposedly the ones that have the up arrow, they call that your exaltations. So those are like the gates that basically your profile line and that gate are very much in harmony with each other, very much in resonance with each other. So you have an even more natural ability or quality in that gate. The ones that have a little down arrow, that just means that your profile line and your gate is like not so much in resonance with each other, which means that may be an extra like just thing to know about yourself, or like maybe an extra thing that you overcome in your life, or like maybe a shadowy thing that you have noticed in yourself. But like the important thing to know is that we all have them. Like we all have like ones that come really naturally to us and ones that don't.
Gifts
So
and shadows.
I don't even, to be honest with you, like I don't even focus on that stuff because it's like so. It at a certain point starts to get to be too much for me.
So like the percentage of human design, like that's probably what, 2%? You know, so you're getting lower.
Yeah, like I don't even like.
Do you even talk to people about that in
No.
readings?
No.
No.
Oh, Wynn does a little bit, and the way she describes it actually it can be really helpful. But it really just at a certain point, and Candy's a 1-3, so she may want to go study that. But the human
That's
design.
really,
What's that?
it's just helpful to know because it's so overwhelming to look at the whole thing and then it's like, oh, but what does that detail mean? What does that detail mean? And yes, as a 1-3, I want to have at least some type of an answer to what that is. But then my other questions are, okay, so you mentioned the Gene Keys book.
Mhm.
Are there any other books that you would recommend and or apps that you would recommend to like dive in a little bit more?
Yeah. So the only human design book that I really reference, but I think is really good to have, especially if you're 1-3, is the original text by Ra Uru Hu himself and Linda Bunnell. I believe it's just called Human Design, The Science of Differentiation. I don't have that one with me in the moment, or maybe I do.
You got 40 books in the car. Which one is it?
Literally, like, our whole, yeah, like, I mean, we live out of our car, right? And our half of our car space is like books and singing bowls.
That's okay. So you're saying the Ra original one, and then what else?
Well, yeah, so it's called Human Design, The Science of Differentiation. It's
Yeah.
by Ra Uru Hu and Linda Bunnell. I can link that like in the replay. I'll put that in the description. That's really like, I mean, that's the text. That's the textbook for human design. For me, a big part of how I learned about human design was honestly because I'm a 4-6. Like I learned through other people, so I learned by like following a
Got
bunch
mine.
What's that?
A
I've got my
Squad.
notes with me too, so.
Yeah, there we go.
Nice. And I would also recommend, honestly, just for anybody, it's not by Richard Rudd, but somebody took Richard Rudd's words and they
Oh.
put them on Spotify. So if you go to just type in Gene Keys on Spotify, somebody put Richard Rudd's voice to Spotify, and it's actually really, really, really
It's
good.
epic.
I mean, that is if you're feeling like you need some inspiration, or not even inspiration, but you're just feeling like you want to learn something, go check those out. They're sick.
Yeah, I can also send you guys like a list of all of like my favorite human design Instagram accounts and like podcast episodes that I listen to, because especially because like Ra's language is like, again, if you're a 1-line, like
It's gonna be great for one line for other people.
if you're a 1-line, then like you need to hear it from the source.
Yeah.
But it's also just can be very cryptic. So I listened to a lot of people who were interpreting it and were putting their own like new age spin on it. So for me, like really solidifying this information came from listening to a bunch of different people explain it. Because again, I'm a 4-line, but
Yeah, come into your own truth after finding many
yeah.
many interpretations, right?
But definitely, like, that's the good. I know that I've heard really good things about Chaitan Parkin. Chaitan Parkin.
How do you
I
spell
can
that?
spell it, but I don't even know how to say it. But yes.
Oh, somebody already put it.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Heard
There you
really
go.
good things. Also, some people really resonate with. I'll put her name in here too, Karen Curry Parker. Some people really resonate with her too, especially like beginners, I think. But her stuff, like from what I've read of it, it's just like really, really watered down. So it's kind of like, do you want to get the really dense like what Ross said, or do you want to get like the really watered down version, which is like Karen Curry Parker?
Yeah, very
So,
basic.
All
right, Molly.
So if you, okay, now I'm going to ask a follow-up question.
Yeah.
So I coach like women one-on-one, primarily women. And I've like opened the door to some human design conversations. And a friend of mine seems to have this software that she uses to generate reports. Is there anything, but she gave me, like she did my report for me. And I'm like, yeah, but it seemed more of like the watered down version.
Yeah.
God love her. Like, I hope she never sees this. So please don't let me, this that part be on the
Savage.
recording. Like, oh Lord. But anyways, like but it was very basic. And I'm like, well, is there somewhere to go that's more outside of these books? Or is there an app, or is there anything that would help?
Wynn, do you want to speak to that?
Is Wind in here?
I don't know if she's
I
in
don't
here.
know if she's there.
We are working on, like, this is currently,
No.
Wynn and I, like, this is currently like our passion project right now is like, we are in the process of like making video courses and different things so that people can have more accessible, affordable.
It's like you don't want to shout somebody out because like I'm doing this.
Yeah,
Right?
it's like, well, I don't know anybody else that's doing it is the thing.
That's why you're doing it.
Yeah, like
Right.
Yeah.
accessible, affordable.
I've seen the website. I saw it from Wind. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so we are like, we still like haven't really launched our stuff, which is like people keep asking like, where can we get this information? And we're like, well, we will have it soon. We don't exactly know when. We're working on it. But yeah, honestly, Candy, I wish, like, if I knew of a place that was doing that, I would tell you. Like, I know probably the best, closest thing would be checking out Jenna Zoe. I think it's myhumandesign.com is now her, like, most current handle. But basically, the thing that I like about her, the software that she uses that's free to get your chart is that she realized that a lot of the human design software that calculates all these different aspects of your chart is not accurate a lot of the time. So she actually hired an astrophysicist, made her own software from scratch, and then it also like it allows you to see like the deeper aspects of your chart, like your environment type and your digestion type. And then when you make your chart, it links to like different videos that you can buy that are pretty affordable that explains all the different things. But yeah, there really doesn't exist like a very quick and easy way to have access to this information. So that's my dream though someday,
Soon.
is that this is all so accessible that like I don't have to give readings to every single person and that the information is just out there and everybody just like my dream is that, you know, you walk down the street and you're like, what human design type are you? And they're like, oh, I'm a 4-6 projector. What are you? And you're like, oh, I'm a 1-3 reflector. Like,
Nice.
like the same way that you would say like, oh, I'm a Capricorn and I'm a Libra or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? That's my dream.
Yeah.
But it's a great question. Sorry that I don't have more. I can't.
No,
I don't know where to give you.
that's awesome information. I think it's really awesome information. I love that you guys are pulling it together. And the other thing I just wanted to share is that as a 1-3 reflector, this all sort of gives me permission to just be who I am, which is really cool.
Yay.
For me, in particular. And I don't know if you know this already, but when I got laid off from the same job basically twice within 9 months. And when that happened, people at my work were saying things to me like, why do you need so much context? Like, I don't understand why you have to always know the big picture or why you need to know and I thought, well, that's because that's what I need in order to know what we have to do next.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine said, people who are reflectors need to leave corporate by the time they are in their 40s. So without aging myself, like I'm way older than being born in 1996. And I totally was like, thank God I got the boot out of corporate because I was starting to literally lose my mind. Like it was living in constant disappointment every single day. So it was just so good to be out of that. And now discovering this makes me feel so much even better about how it all shook out. So just thank you for everything that you're putting out.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that, Candy. You're so welcome. And yeah, I think that's like why I do what I do, is to like help people feel validated their experience. Like, know that if there is a way that feels like the path of least resistance for you, then there's a reason why that feels like the path of least resistance for you. And thank goodness that you got out of that corporate job, because that's going to pave the way for so many more beautiful things that you're here to experience and reflect and do. So yeah, I love you all so much. My voice, I think, is officially burnt. So we're going to close this out. But
wait, quick note, if you're still here, then
oh jeez, here we go.
we love you.
The Nick
So
show.
the Nick show, okay. But real quick,
3-5
is-
taking over.
we just don't know what's gonna happen next week, in general. So just understand that if the course gets delayed, the next week gets delayed for some reason, it's because something incredible happens in the world. And I'm not a prophet. I don't know what's gonna happen, but I'm just saying there's a lot of things aligning in the planets, so we don't know where things are gonna be. So just be aware that
Yeah, there's a
might
lot
get
of
delayed.
people. There's a lot of people making a lot of
Prophecy type
a lot
videos.
of predictions about like things that could happen on the 21st, like that things, the internet may get shut down or whatever. So I think that's what Nick is alluding to. But
Well, I'll probably make a video on it at some point, but I'm just saying that this world may be getting a little bit more volatile in this next week. And if it does, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I don't know what's going to happen. And none of us know. But I'm just preparing y'all in that case that happens. So that it's not that we don't want to be here.
yeah,
So,
well, we'll see what happens.
right.
It's a very interesting time to be alive for sure. But yeah, we love you guys. Next session will be a lot more movement based. So
Are we doing...
we'll be going through each chakra and like different movement strategies to balance each chakra. And then we'll be doing myofascial release. So if you haven't yet, in like a previous video, I talked about you're gonna want like a firm medicine ball. If you have a foam roll, you can use that too. The medicine ball will probably be easier. And then you'll want some sort of like soft, like either volleyball or soccer ball, a smaller one that you can deflate a little bit. And then you also want like some sort of like racket ball or lacrosse ball, like a smaller, firmer one.
Yeah. Just know that if you're having pain in your body, if you've had pains for a while in certain areas, we're going to teach you how to literally clear that so you don't have to deal with it anymore. It is a game changer.
Yeah.
And the wind is going crazy now.
So and the reason why we're doing this is because so much energy gets stuck in our tissues and especially in our fascia. And so to me, it ties in perfectly with like being able to release energy from your chakras and your centers that you're storing. It's just like the way that this basically manifests in your physical body. So next session, you'll want to come comfortable, come in yoga clothes or workout clothes.
And you don't
make
have
sure
to
you
do
have
it.
like a space that you can do it. But
Yeah, and if you don't have to if you don't want to. It's just good to know. And yeah, we will see you in 5D. I'll see you there.
I love it. I love that. All right, love you all.
All right, we'll see you guys in the next, all right?
All right, bye.